The two companies hosted a panel discussion in Johannesburg highlighting the impact of geopolitical and geo-economic shifts of South African corporates. Nastasia Hardworth is a sector head at the law firm.
I think it's extremely timely, and I quite frankly don't think that Trump could have timed it any better, or we could have, for this very important discussion that we're having about protecting SA Inc. So I think that it's really important that companies take stock, that they accept where we are on the global stage and on this geopolitical roller coaster at the moment, and that they look at financial and legal tools to bolster their capabilities and insulate themselves from what's happening on the global stage at the moment.
Authorities say they have recovered drugs including dagga and crystal meth during a crime prevention operation in Midrand, north of Johannesburg. Illicit cigarettes and alcohol were also confiscated during the raid at the Midrand shopping centre. Johannesburg's Public Safety MMC Mgcini Chwaku led the joint operation that included the city's law enforcement unit following a tip-off. He says some hair salons around Midrand are being used as a front to sell drugs.
We're formed sort of, I can call them informers. Guys who are just watching over and check what is happening. We are watching the watchers as well. We are doing our undercover work. We know that most of the shops here, they are not complying on the bylaw. So we got a tip off on that, even with the drugs as well. So we got the crystal meth, illegal alcohol, legal cigarettes, and we also got the money. This is a tip of an iceberg. The only thing is that we don't want to really stop people's business and all of that, okay? What we say to people, they must comply with the laws. Some of the people, they don't even understand what is the bylaw. So if they want to open the shop, they must contact the city who are there to help.
The Polokwane municipality in Limpopo says there's a power outage at Seshego and surrounding areas. Affected areas include Hospital View, Madiba Park and Seshego Hospital. The municipal authorities have blamed the outage on a faulty surge arrestor at the Sigma substation. Authorities say the technical teams are working to restore back power to all the affected areas. More than 50 people have been killed during an attack by gunmen in central Nigeria's Plateau State. The victims were members of a volunteer force that was set up to protect villages from raids. The BBC's Chris Ewoka reports.
A resident of the area told the BBC that 56 bodies were recovered after the ambush, but some vigilantes are still missing and feared to have been killed. Members of the local volunteer force had moved into the forest during an operation to target armed gangs that have been raiding their communities. These self-defense groups were set up after the police and the army failed to offer enough protection. Plateau State is the scene of frequent clashes between nomadic herders and farming communities over access to land. Last month, more than 50 people were killed and dozens of homes were burnt down by gunmen during raids across the state.
Recapping the top story, the International Monetary Fund says debt vulnerability in sub-Saharan Africa is mounting due to high global uncertainty, tighter global financial conditions and rising borrowing costs. I am Ondelambana for SAFM News Headlines at 3:30.
And in your sports this hour, SA Under-19 men's squad announced for Bangladesh and Zimbabwe Tri-Series. Bulls make 3 new signings and Wimbledon quarterfinals showdown takes center stage today. More details at 3:30.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide. Leading the conversation.
The Twiga Stars want to impress the Tanzanians with maximum points, while Banyana Banyana won nothing but a win as a reminder that they are the continental champions. This is the Group C clash of the Total Energies Women's Africa Cup of Nations Morocco 2024. Catch the glittering clash between Tanzania and South Africa on Friday 11 July at 8:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus, SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and S3. Also available on SABC radio stations at 9 p.m. Where Africa competes, South Africa connects. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Keeping your family healthy this winter can feel like a daunting task. Try the Lung Shield range. It includes capsules to support healthy lungs and immunity, a syrup for kids that supports the immune system and promotes lung health, and an effervescent with 13 essential ingredients to optimize immune function. Put your family's health first this winter with the Lung Shield range. Available without a prescription at leading pharmacies. Lung Shield, prescribed by doctors, recommended by pharmacists.
If we have rights, shouldn't we also have opinions? SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
Yesterday was about policing and who polices the police. Then today it's a different sort of policing, which is, Trump's tariffs and the punitive measures of tariffs when countries import or export, depending on your perspective. And that's what we'll talk about today. Not just that, but a whole lot of other things as well, including another take on the South African medical aid schemes getting their comments around the issues of black medical professionals being discriminated against, right? So we'll talk about that later. My name's Ashraf Garda. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the National Pulse. 3 hours of the biggest issues that you and I know gives you a clear feel of what moves the country every single day, and sometimes not just moves the country, but moves the world as well, right? So let's talk about the tariffs. So firstly, to call in 086 000 2032, and you may have noticed some shift nowadays. We have the first conversation and we have a call reaction immediately thereafter, so we'll do that soon. Then WhatsApp, text or voice note 0614 104 107. So let's talk about the tariffs then. So you may have heard this late yesterday. The US President Donald Trump spoke about a 30% tariff on South African goods and produce. Now, this is one thing. The other part of it is there was also a separate 10%, so I understand, tariff for all BRICS nations, which means, do I take it right, that South Africa would be tariffed or charged for even more than that if they are exporting to Americans, which makes our goods rather, can I say that, unaffordable, perhaps? What are the implications? So let's understand it and what the implications are with Professor Patrick Bond, who's a political economist, an expert on international relations at the University of Joburg. Prof. Bond, good to connect with you as always on the National Pulse.
Thanks, Ashraf. Really great to be with you and your listeners.
This sounds like a James Bond movement, where someone is in charge and by decree decide what to do. What do you make of what's happened overnight?
Yeah, it's like an evil conspirator sitting in the White House with State Department, the Treasury Secretary, and 3 or 4 economists, and they're overwhelmed. They wanted to do 90 deals in 90 days, and they didn't have the stamina, didn't have the capacity. So then yesterday they just threw 14 countries into a sort of, random. The 30% for us was like 31% announced April 2nd. By the way, there are a couple of other crucial features. Our platinum, gold, our iron ore, manganese, our chrome, and coal even gets 0%. And that's because the big corporates in the U.S. didn't want to have that part of the inflationary push, so they persuaded Trump to give a 0%. So a huge chunk of South Africa's exports
Let's do this. I think we're just struggling to hear you clearly. Let's see if we can just reconnect with. I'll get Keys and maybe Patrick just to try and sort it out in just a moment, because we certainly want to hear every word and hang on to them as per the conversation with Professor Patrick Bond. But let me throw this to you as the audience. When you've heard this, so the 30% tariff, my understanding that is above and beyond the 10% for all BRICS nations, which means if you're exporting and if you're selling goods for 100 rands, it's now 130 rands. And I'm just assuming it's rands and not dollars. I get that. And then another 10%, so 140 rands, which then pushes into a situation where you may wonder how appealing it is. But there are different factors around it. We once again reconnect with Professor Patrick Bond. So I didn't hear you very clearly initially, but you did make the point about trying to get 90 deals in 90 days. I hear that, right? So what then has been, I wouldn't even say proposed, but decreed effectively by the White House?
Well, it's the 30% plus, as you said, 10% by being a member of BRICS. There are the exceptions. Very quickly, they're very important. The platinum, gold, chrome, manganese, iron ore, coal, basic minerals are exempted. They're 0% because the corporates on that side wanted them cheaper. But secondly, our aluminium, steel, and automobiles are set at a different tariff since February, 25%. But Ashraf, what it means is AGOA, Africa Growth and Opportunity Act, that had been set up by George W. Bush at 0% for so many things is over. It's finished. And that means not just us, but our neighbors, Lesotho, 50% tariff. This is the sort of nonsense that comes from Trump just being, let's say, a bully, and also fearful that these trade deficits will continue.
Okay, so AGOA is dead. Lots of conversation around that. But let's get this right as well. This 30% and then the 10%, that's the BRICS membership 10%, right? Does not just apply to South Africa. The BRICS, of course, with others, but even the 30, there are many other countries. So why I'm asking that question is because, I mean, I've seen immediately on social media, it's like, oh, you see, South Africa, you're being punished because of your land policies and as per the AfriForum lobbies abroad. I mean, that's got nothing to do with that, right?
Correct. It's the trade deficit divided by the total trade, meaning they're not really looking at, as Trump called it, reciprocal. In other words, you do something to me, I'll do it back to you. Instead, it's simply that South Africa is more productive and has these commodities like platinum, the biggest export, and steel, aluminium, automobiles, big chunks of AGOA, that those have been more competitive, and therefore there's been a trade surplus from South Africa. And I think the big problem is, the whole world, like yesterday, Japan and Korea, they got 25%. We're all, I think, getting very angry that it's yet another round of financial market turbulence and Wall Street crashed. Trade is just chaotic. You can't plan if you've got these. On top of that, new data showing that the cuts in U.S. aid from Trump and Elon Musk at the time will kill 1.8 million people this year and 14 million by 2030. This is a new Lancet article this week. And so we're just getting to the point when he's walking out of the climate summit. He's walked out of World Health Organization, the food aid that helps him, crucial to Sudan, the bombing of Iran, the genocide in Gaza. And wow, at what point do we all say, really, Donald Trump, you're not fit to be in the G20. Don't come and play golf with us in November.
Interesting you say that. Let's go back then, just in terms of understanding balance of payments, because Donald Trump made that point, right, that, with regard to South Africa, that it has to be more reciprocal. So I think for most people who are listening, they may not get what that really means in terms of South Africa importing American products and then South Africa exporting to America, and this balance of payments or balance of trade that's so important. Can you talk us through that?
Yes, so some of the things that are in the overall current account, that is all of the relations that include trade, investment, financial flows, those have been very positive for South Africa because we've had a constricted demand, and that's because of our very slow-growing economy and a lower level of imports. In the first period of the post-apartheid era, we had many more imports and we had a trade deficit. But now, especially with the U.S., China's a little different, but especially with the U.S., we're running this surplus. And what Donald Trump has as a theory is if he can reverse that surplus, even if it means inflationary new prices for his MAGA crowd, the people who elected him, expecting him to bring prices down, his countervailing strategy is to lower the value of the dollar, and that'll even it out. That's the theory that Stephen Marin, his chief economist, has said. And they're hoping, as a benefit, they're going to get many more manufactured jobs back into the U.S. because there'll be more of an incentive for U.S. companies to do the kinds of things that they've outsourced, first to Mexico and then to China. And the question is, will it work? And most of the economists I talk to and think of, read their work, they're just unconvinced that the speed at which they can bring those jobs back to the U.S. will let's say, offset these higher prices, and they'll just won't have that capacity, the infrastructure, and even the training of workers. So I think it's going to be seen as a terrible failure, and you can see that in Wall Street as the Dow is crashing and the dollar is still tumbling, and so it looks like a terrible mess. And Trump doesn't have that much popularity. He's just won this big tax cut for his mates, the very rich, and he's got Medicaid, he's got very, very important services to poor people. So he's at the peak of his power, but I think this is a very slippery slope he's just about to embark upon if he sticks with this.
All right, let's turn this around. What implications does this have for South Africa? That means from the president to the economists to the leaders of business, Department of Trade, Industry. What would they be saying today?
Well, the negative, which will be that the existing systems of export of especially the big areas of automobiles and steel, aluminium, those are under pressure, as well as citrus and vineyards. But there's a positive side that people haven't thought about enough, which is that those big, heavy industries, I'm thinking especially of ArcelorMittal, which is closing its foundries due to Chinese competition, or especially BHP Billiton, that's a big South 32 smelter up in Richards Bay, the Hillside smelter. They use 7% of the electricity in the grid. So we still have these shortages. And if we can redistribute some of the electricity that now is no longer needed for the export to the U.S., to labor-intensive industry and small businesses and to households, women especially needing the electricity in those households that are now under load reduction. If we could see a shift and internal economic demand, maybe infrastructure projects and housing that would demand steel locally, then we'd be in a much better position if we're not dependent upon the U.S. market. So there could be a silver lining.
All right, because I'm picking up a tweet from Michael Jordan, former FNB CEO, right? I mean, there's many different things now in the venture capital space, and he made the point about tariffs for South African exports to the USA, 30%, which, I mean, obviously we can say 30 plus 10, and then saying to China, 0%, and then making the point, world is easternizing fast. So let's pick up on that last point, world is easternizing fast. Do you find that inadvertently the USA, they may come across as being in charge and therefore we'll charge you what you want, but in fact what they may be doing is turning big markets away from their market, short term, medium term, and definitely long term too?
Oh, and it's very dangerous, exactly what you said, and I didn't see Michael Jordan's tweet. I'm sure he's got some great insight. If the Chinese, who are under all sorts of pressures from the U.S. in geopolitical and financial, economic terms, they've obviously fought back by threatening to withdraw the rare earth elements that go into magnets, for example. So huge chunks of the U.S. high-tech industry is threatened. But the main thing is they may then dump on us. That is, if the U.S. is not as good a market for the Chinese, well, we have an International Trade Administration Commission, ITAC, and they've been putting tariffs on Chinese imports into South Africa, steel and nuts and bolts and tires, as a defense mechanism, even before this tariff war. And I think that might be where we end up seeing the real damage to clothing, textiles, footwear, appliances, electronics, the things that were really smashed in the 1990s when we had many new imports. We joined the World Trade Organization. And whatever we've got left now, I think, will be threatened unless a man called Ayabonga Traore, who's the head of ITAC, gets very quickly into checking whether dumping from China, because they're losing their U.S. market.
I'm very interested from a pure political point of view, what does Ramaphosa do next? Because I think there's some space being left open for some form of negotiation to get that number down. And I'll touch on that right after this.
The Eagles of Carthage and the Phoenix both believe they are the queens of North Africa. Who are the real queens of the North? This is the Total Energies Women's Africa Cup of Nations, Morocco 2024. Catch the spectacular battle between Tunisia and Algeria this Thursday, 10 July at 6 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus, S3 and SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Where Africa competes, South Africa connects. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
Bigger office, more staff, a new location? Growth takes investment, and a business term loan from Standard Bank gives you the capital you need to expand on your terms. With competitive interest rates, fixed monthly repayments, and a dedicated support team, you can plan ahead with confidence. Keep your business growing with a Standard Bank business term loan. Visit standardbank.co.za/business loans to apply. Standard Bank is an authorized FSP and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
You are listening to SAFM Radio this Mandela Month.
It is in your hands now.
Ashraf Garda on the National Pulse.
Well, we're concluding a conversation with Professor Patrick Bond, and it means that you can get a chance to call in too. And I'd like to get your thoughts on the tariffs, the 30% plus the 10% tariffs, and what that does to the USA, what that does for South Africa's global competitiveness or their competitiveness in dealing with the US market. So let's hear what you have to say. 086 000 2032. But Prof. Patrick Bond, who's with us, let's touch on this. I mean, I also understand Trump made the point about almost zero tariff if South African companies are able to set up manufacturing plants in the USA, if I understood that correctly. That's one. And therefore left something open for South Africa to negotiate in the days ahead. What do you understand by that? And therefore, what should Ramaphosa and his colleagues and his departments be doing in the next few days?
Well, I think May 21 gave us a sense of what was on offer, because leaking Parks Tau, the trade minister's offers, deals were particularly aimed at buying U.S. oil and gas. There was some sense maybe of offering offshore South African oil and gas, which have been very difficult. Legal, environmental, social protests against Shell and Total, they hold some of those rights. And what's very interesting is that, I think by all accounts, failed. That attempt, whether it was a 14 kg golf course book offer of coming with a state visit, all of the flattery, all of the attempts to win Trump's hearts and minds and put down that white genocide myth, that failed. I think we have to understand Plan A failed. It's hard to deal with a con man, a madman like Trump. So what is Plan B? And there it's very interesting politically, as you ask. We host the G20. It's an extraordinary opportunity to say one country, only one, China, could stand up and fight back. But what if we had more countries? And if you look at the G20, it's really only Saudi Arabia and Argentina and Italy with right-wing governments that are sort of Trump-friendly. But the rest, I think, are just as frustrating. Look at that mild-mannered Canadian, Mark Carney, and how angry he was. You look at Keir Starmer, he must be infuriated. The Germans, French especially. I mean, there could be in the G20 a number of countries that say, no, make it a G19. Let's kick Donald Trump off the island, vote him off, and have the G19 next year in Mexico City with Claudia Sheinbaum, their president, who's very progressive. So that would be my little hope for Plan B. Because Plan A, which is sucking up to him and kissing my ass, as he put it, 75 countries kissing my ass, you brag. Well, that isn't helping anyone. He's dividing and conquering.
Well,
and we just don't have the power yet.
All right, let's do that. At a time of, as you said, South Africa does have some muscle with the G20, and so do other countries, and also now an enlarged BRICS as well. And just how much clout does that really mean for these countries? Appreciate your insights for today, Professor Patrick Bond. Thank you, as always, here on the National Pulse, right? And what it leaves me is to get to you, because you, of course, are on the Pulse, aren't you?
X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
Let's hear what you have to say. I mean, a lot has been said about different things, specifically, and again, central to this is tariffs and Trump, right? Here's one.
It's banned from Durban, just in response to the tariffs. I do think that they are punitive, maybe not for the genocide in brackets, inverted commas. I think Donald Trump used that to play a different angle on, put pressure on South Africa with regards to Iran, Israel, and I personally think that he's using trade tariffs to put pressure on again. If he does roll those back for South Africa, then I think we'll be able to see that he did use them for pressure.
Okay, what sort of pressure? Interestingly enough, in his letter to South Africa, of course, he's written to every other country. He also spoke about the great country of South Africa. Yeah, like, okay, I got that.
I agree, Ashraf. You know, it's not good that we always have these anti-Trump professors, these spokespeople that want to explain things to us. America's got a debt of almost 33 trillion, I believe. So they are in a bit of a pickle themselves, and they're trying to, decrease that. They're trying to strengthen the economy, because many countries have benefit doing business, doing trade with America. So, I don't think we should be upset with America. They've given aid, they've given good fair deals. We had the GOA. Now it's time for America to strengthen themselves, strengthen their economy. So we can't be upset, you know what I mean? And but what we need to do is we need to stop this Trump derangement syndrome. Please, man. Thanks.
Well, I don't know about Trump derangement syndrome. He speaks about, he pronounces on things every single day, and are we saying we just turn a blind eye to that? On the terrorist part, I agree with you. It is right, okay? But we have to respond as a country because it impacts on you and I as a people that lives in this country. There's more on Trump.
Good afternoon, Dr. Ashraf. It's Feather Tracker here in Western Cape. Dr. Ashraf, Donald Trump can never be analyzed by any analyst on what he's about to do. This man is a lunatic. Let's give him his 4 years and then we'll go on with our lives. I know my friend Mike from Newlands will come and try to jinx it up and tell us about BEE. It's not that. We have to worry about what the banks and this medical aid scheme always do. Overcharging black people.
That doesn't mean we can't worry about, you're restricting to South Africa and you're mixing America and South Africa. As far as Donald Trump is concerned, you've just analyzed him as well, calling him a lunatic. So you've taken the liberty of doing just that anyway.
Can we please talk about SARS, and can you get an explanation on why basic salaried employees were not able to submit their returns yesterday, but were told to come back in 2 weeks' time? This has never happened in my history of submitting and getting my refund from SARS. Why is it happening now? And I think this is another sign of how Cyril Ramaphosa's administration is squandering our taxes. We're servicing 2 billion in loans per day, but every damn week they are taking more loans from this, loans from that. It's a Ponzi scheme. Our country is being run like a Ponzi scheme. I bet you he's in Brazil now to get money so that our refunds can be paid to us. So let's have the SARS commissioner explain himself, please.
Okay, but I think you're confusing or conflating so many different issues. Your first one is your problem about the SARS. I think we need to find out exactly. Maybe I'll get Temba Keys just to check up and follow up on that issue. Maybe there's been a statement from SARS. We need to follow that up. The second one, the country needs money. I take that. But why is he why was he in Brazil? The president, that is, and his should have landed today. That's because of the BRICS summit. He's a member country. So, but do we need to get our act together in general? The answer is clearly yes, right? Okay, 3:30. Let's get Angela Mbana to deliver the news headlines.
Thank you, Ashraf. On the news headlines, Agriculture Minister John Steenhuisen says the looming export tariff hike by the United States on South Africa shows that the country needs urgent reforms. The ATM says it has written to the public protector, Koleka Galeka, requesting her to investigate political interference, executive misconduct and the orchestrated collapse of the political killings task team under the alleged direction of Minister Senzo Mchunu as a matter of urgency. And the International Monetary Fund says debt vulnerability in sub-Saharan Africa is mounting due to high global uncertainty, tighter global financial conditions and rising borrowing costs. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M1 southbound in central Johannesburg, slow moving towards Crown Interchange, and the N12 westbound has a crash before the N1 Diepkloof Interchange. In KZN, the N3 westbound has a crash at Hammersdale, and the N11 in Newcastle has a truck crash reported at Majuba Pass, so expect delays and diversions. In Cape Town, the N2 outbound queuing towards Lisbeek Parkway and Viking Way eastbound in Epping, slow moving towards the N7 Jakes Hadwell Drive. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tumi Nkgapele.
Well, a very good afternoon to you, Ashraf, and our listeners. Starting off with cricket this hour, where Cricket South Africa has named a fresh-faced SA Under-19 men's squad for the upcoming Youth ODI series against Bangladesh followed by a tri-series in Zimbabwe. Now, the 3-match home leg runs from the 17th to the 22nd of July at Wilmore Park in Benoni before the teams head north for the tri-series in Harare, and that is from the 25th of July to the 10th of August. And all of this is part of the build-up to the ICC Under-19 World Cup in early 2026. KZN Inland's Mohamed Balbalia and Lions all-rounder Jason Rawls will continue to share the captaincy duties, while 3 new talents in Corne Botha, Arman Manak and Vihan Pretorius have earned their first national call-ups. In terms of the squad, it basically blends continuity with fresh energy. This is after a strong showing against Namibia last month. Then moving on to football, Kaizer Chiefs have officially entered the women's football space, announcing a strategic partnership with Springs Home Sweepers FC, a Gauteng Sasol League side that is owned by Amakosi legend Joseph Mkonza. Now, the move is part of CAF's club licensing regulations, which requires teams participating in inter-club competitions to either operate a women's team or partner with one. And Chiefs, who have now qualified for the CAF Confederations Cup after winning the 2025 Nedbank Cup, they say that this partnership goes beyond compliance. Now, Home Sweepers played their first match under the new partnership this past weekend against Wits University, and they're going to host Bluebirds Football Academy at Guatemala Stadium on the 13th of July at 3 p.m. In the meantime, Banyana head coach Desiree Ellis says that there's less pressure now going into the upcoming matches. This is after winning their first game in the Women's Africa Cup of Nations. Banyana collected 3 points to lead Group C after their hard-fought 2-0 win over Ghana last night. And next up for South Africa, they face Tanzania on Friday. Elsewhere, it's down to the final 4 in the FIFA Club World Cup, and the semi-finals start with Chelsea taking on Fluminense today. The Blues have 1 loss in the group stages so far to Flamengo, while the Brazilian side are yet to lose so far, winning 3 matches, 2 draws in 5 total contests between the group stage and round of 16, and definitely this one promises to be a very interesting game. Kickoff is at 9 p.m. In rugby, the Bulls have bolstered their squad with 3 big signings ahead of the new United Rugby Championship season, which is starting in September. Springbok centre Jan Serfontein and locks Marvin Orie and Nicholas Janse van Rensburg are returning to Loftus. This is after stints in France. All 3 previously started their careers with the Bulls, and they definitely bring valuable international experience. And this follows the headline return of World Cup winning fly half Andre Pollard, who confirmed his comeback to the Pretoria-based side earlier this year. Meanwhile, New Zealand captain Scott Barrett has been ruled out of the rest of the 3-match series against France because of a calf tear suffered in the first test. Now, Barrett left the field in the 58th minute during Saturday's 31-27 win against France, and it was initially feared to be an Achilles issue, but a scan confirmed a calf tear, which means that Barrett will miss Saturday's second test in Wellington and the final match in Hamilton a week later. Finally, in tennis, the Wimbledon quarterfinals get underway today with defending champion Carlos Alcaraz and hopeful title holder Aryna Sabalenka in action on the show courts. Alcaraz faces the final Brit left on the tournament. It's Cameron Norrie in the centre court as he looks to vanquish Britain's hopes of another home winner of this grass court Grand Slam. In terms of Sabalenka, she'll be looking to book a semi-final showdown, but must first get past Laura Siegemund in the last 8 this afternoon. With that said, it is a wrap from my side for now. I'll have more in the next hour.
I tell you what, I'm just reflecting on yesterday's Wimbledon game between Yannick Sinner and Grigor Dimitrov. First of all, they're friends, they're chummies. And then Sinner's the number 1 seed, remember? And then Dimitrov has the nerve to go 2 sets up in the absolute ascendancy. And then what happens? He gets injured. And if you look at those pictures of these friends, with Sinner coming to him and trying to support him and then consoling him when he realized he was forced to retire, and Sinner making the point, I don't take this as a win at all. But amongst the many pictures, there's two great pictures. The two of them seated on the grass, on the lawn of Wimbledon, trying to talk to each other about what happens next. And then finally, arms behind each other's backs as they walk off the court at centre court. Quite a moment, because Wimbledon is about winning and great rivalry, but it also is about great friendship. When we think about the Comrades Marathon, that ultimately we are comrades. Well, here's a good example of just that. This is the National Pulse.
SAFM supports a litter-free South Africa. Play your part in keeping our surroundings and environment clean. SAFM, leading the conversation.
"30 years ago, a moment united a nation. From Ellis Park to every township and village, we stood together. One people, one dream, one victory. Now, the vibration rises again. From the heart of Mzansi to every corner of the country. The 4-time world champions, the mighty Springboks, take on the Azuri in a clash where history meets destiny. This is more than a match. It's a country moment, only on SABC. Celebrate the 30th anniversary of our 1995 Rugby World Cup victory. Watch South Africa versus Italy, Saturday 12 July at 4 p.m. Live on SABC2 and streaming on SABC+. Also available on SABC radio stations at 5 p.m. Download the SABC Plus app now. Switch, stream, no subscription. SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Ashraf Garda on the National Pulse.
You may want to make a note of this, right? If you're feeling lucky, now I'm not one who dabbles in this feeling lucky thing, but it could well be you. If you are up for it, play Powerball and Powerball Plus for 60 million rands in total estimated jackpots this Tuesday. You could win big. Play Powerball for an estimated 56 million rands and then Powerball Plus for the estimated 4 million rands. Now buy your tickets now in store or via the nationallottery.coza, the mobile app, cell phone banking, or simply dial star 120 star 7529 hash for USSD. Panda Push-Up Play. Players must be 18 years or older. Play responsibly. Ituba is the proud operator of the National Lottery.
Here, there, and everywhere. SAFM 105.1 FM in Johannesburg.
Well, it has certainly been the Trump and the Trump tariff show up to now, and maybe in a way this is an extension of that. But I'll tell you now shortly, we'll chat to Professor Mary Metcalf about news that over 21% of grade R teachers are not suitable for their jobs. Oh my goodness, it comes up in a moment. So 5 African leaders are set to meet with the US President Donald Trump this week to discuss commercial opportunities. In fact, they meet now, right, today, to discuss commercial opportunities. The presidents of the countries like Guinea-Bissau, Senegal, Mauritania, Liberia, as well as Gabon, right? What is this all about? What is the implications? What are the implications? Why would he meet all of them? With me, Professor Chris Ezike, the Professor of African Politics and International Relations at the University of Pretoria. Prof. Ezike, as always, good to connect with you on the National Pulse.
Thank you, Ashraf, for having me.
Thank you. So, I saw someone say rather cynically that often when Trump meets, it's always transactional, but often he therefore meets some of the bigger nations. And when it comes to Africa, you would think of South Africa, you think of Egypt, you think of Nigeria, maybe Ghana too, and maybe others like Morocco, Algeria, I don't know. But why these countries? They don't rank amongst the most significant, and I'm talking about in terms of economic clout. So why would he meet them?
Look, like you said, Trump is very transactional, and right now he's very desperate for some kind of deal to show that he's winning with his madman approach, to international relations, to foreign policy. He's very desperate to get things done. And he latches on any kind of opportunity, but it's also part of a wider design strategy to try and alienate countries in Africa that are tending towards BRICS. Okay, so you recently heard him talk about tariffing countries in the BRICS bloc and those that support their so-called anti-US policy, and essentially he's talking about de-dollarization. So he wouldn't want to come to South Africa. South Africa is in BRICS. Nigeria is a partner now in BRICS. Egypt is there. So those are the big players. There are others that are lining up to join the BRICS platform. So it is also a way to say, okay, I can ignore you guys and cherry pick you and go look for smaller players who will be looking to also benefit, who will be pleased to do business with us, because for these countries there are opportunities for them to engage with a major power, global power like the US, get specific support on specific national interests, and also foster economic and political ties that can be mutually beneficial to them and the US.
And if you look at maybe 3-4 key issues amongst the 5 countries, what would they be looking for? What are the issues they'd be discussing?
Well, it's different strokes for different folks, but broadly, you can talk about political support for a country like Liberia coming out of a war. They would really benefit from that. There's also security cooperation they can get. There are economic partnership and infrastructure development, and of course the global influence of engaging with the US in ways that will enhance their visibility, right? But if you want to talk country by country, if you look at Senegal, for instance, could get increased US investment in its agricultural and energy sector. And this is crucial for their development. There's a new leadership in place that is looking to maximize opportunities, move away from France, right? And also even in terms of security cooperation, most of these West Francophone African countries have actually started seeking other security cooperation with other countries, and playing with the US would help, keep them safe, in their reckoning. And if you look at Mauritania, there are a lot of trade opportunities that it presents, and they look to enhance trade relations with the US, particularly in their fishing and mining industries. And that's something I think that the US is also looking to benefit from, right? Guinea-Bissau, also like Liberia, recovery from political instability, would help get support for democratic governance and institutional strengthening, which is something that they're looking for right now. Gabon, on the other hand, is a bit different. It's rich in oil and liquefied natural gas, as well as it has rich biodiversity and forests, which the US is interested in. So overall, there are opportunities for them to do better than they are doing currently, and putting themselves up with a transactional US president puts them at an advantage that they've not had in years before.
So here's another thing besides what would be of interest or mutual interest to all 5 countries and the USA. There's another school of thought that says, Trump is very keen to talk to these countries, and besides giving them sweeteners, as is his way, also to try and then implement measures to control migration to the USA, because that's one of his biggest issues, to keep immigrants out of the USA, right? What do you make of that?
Well, that doesn't fly too much with me, because these countries he's selecting are not big contributors to immigration in America, and many of them have strict passport control, and their citizens are not really given to travel, except maybe Liberia. You have a lot of Liberians, of course, quite a few in the US and elsewhere in the West. I don't think it's about that. I think it's more about trying to tell the other key players in Africa to say, look, I can divide and rule you, and do business and with those who are willing to do business, and also to announce something to his base. This guy is whimsical, he's very erratic. He will grab any opportunity to tell his base that I am winning, despite the fact that everyone thinks I'm mad. I'm actually winning. Remember, I said over 200 countries have come to sign deals. We have only heard of 3 so far. We have not even heard up to 20. But he talked about 200. A Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, talked about 100 plus. In the coming days, we'll hear. He's been saying this for 3 weeks. So, they've put out an impression of success, and somehow he has to have these wins. And that's one of the reasons why I also jumped into the Rwandan DRC, conflict in order to quickly announce an agreement. Whereas there are things on the ground that can make that agreement very precarious.
Just the last thing on that. I mean, so yes, you have to give it to Trump in this case here as the president of the USA, fully energized, making sure that he's working every single day, and the rate of change is actually breathtaking, right? Obviously looking after American interest, right? If we then fast forward, say 1 year down the line, and there was a deal regarding tariffs for South Africa as well yesterday, would you think that the world would be in a better place a year from now? Or not? Never mind what the motives may be, transactional or not.
Well, it remains to be seen. But the fact of the matter is that he's also walked back a lot of these drastic changes he's made, right? Even within the US alone, a lot of workers that were fired have been called back to go back to their positions to help do the things that they were fired for. So that's one of the challenges of all of this. And of course, you also have to think about the impact on the US itself in terms of its waning influence. All of these things are tearing at its soft power appeal globally. And apart from that, it is also leaving huge vacuums that countries like China and Russia and even other countries of the West are willing to fill, including the European Union in Africa and the Gulf countries. So at the end of the day, will America really be stronger? Will America be will it have more credibility than it currently has? I doubt. So at the end of the day, you then sit back and ask, all of it was for what? Was it just muscle flexing that achieved tangible results? Of course, you can look at what he has done with the NATO. More of the countries now are putting more money into defense. So that's a win for him, something that we can really count as an achievement. But beyond those, it's more of contributing to America's winning influence, because I don't think he really understands what makes America or what made America great in the first place.
Let's leave it at that. Professor Chris Ezekiel, the Professor of African Politics and International Relations at the University of Pretoria. Thank you for your time. Much appreciated. And by the way, just talking about the complex world of contradictions that we all live in. So, you have the Nobel Peace Prize, and Donald Trump has been nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. And do you know who's nominated him? And that will tell you the sense of contradictions we have in the global world. Let's talk about the contradictions of grade R education and their teachers after this.
Join us for this year's fundraiser, Jazz for Young People concert at the National School of the Arts on the 26th of July. This unique event, perfect for families, is a powerful celebration of youth, creativity, and community spirit. So bring the whole family to enjoy a wonderful day of world-class jazz curated by Zoe Mudicha, featuring the Parktown Girls Band, Tshwane School of Music, The Real DJ Zandi, Kutlotaro Jazz Band, and many others. Tickets are just 80 Rand and 50 Rand for kids under 12 via Quicket. Jazz for Young People is proudly brought to you by Standard Bank Joy of Jazz.
The Eagles of Carthage and the Phoenix both believe they are the queens of North Africa. Who are the real queens of the North? This is the Total Energies Women's Africa Cup of Nations, Morocco 2024. Catch the spectacular battle between Tunisia and Algeria this Thursday, 10 July at 6 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus, S3, and SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Where Africa competes, South Africa connects. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
Oh, just so you know, that Trump nomination for the Nobel Peace Prize coming from the Israeli head Benjamin Netanyahu, right? I'm looking at a tweet from Tisetso Malepa saying, I'm listening Today I'm listening and also watching the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SFM Radio. That's great, because often we say, are you listening or are you watching? In fact, here's one person doing it both ways, and the reason for that is watching us on streaming live, which we stream live on YouTube and on the Twitter platform or X platform, as well as on Facebook. You can do that as well, okay? So watch or look and listen. Remember that phrase? Look and listen, right? Let's talk about grade R teachers. So these numbers are just baffling me. The Department of Basic Education have confirmed that 21% of grade R teachers across the country do not possess the requisite skills to teach. According to the department, KwaZulu-Natal is the highest number of these unqualified grade R teachers, with 1,937. And the Western Cape are second with 1,416. These observations are made as part of the department's oversight as part of the Bella Bill implementation. Okay, let's get some answers. Let's understand it. Professor Mary Metcalf, Professor of Practice at the University of Joburg, is with me. Prof. Metcalf, it's always good to connect with you on the National Pulse.
Thank you, Ashraf.
Thank you. I would think if a parent's listening right now, their pulses may well be racing and somebody has to reassure them otherwise. What do you understand by this?
Well, Bella has made grade R now compulsory, and that is a very progressive step. It means that in South Africa we've now got 10 years of compulsory education, starting from the year in which a child turns 6. So children will be going to school into grade R when they're 5 years old. Now, the DBE has prepared for this over time, because they have been gradually introducing grade R in many of the public schools. Some learners are in early education learning centres, but if you look at the number of grade R learners in early learning education centres and public schools and private schools, it's actually 97% of our children. There's only 610 public schools that don't offer grade R. So this year of 2025, after the signing of the Bella Act in 2024, I think has given the department and the provinces where implementation is located the time to really look very critically and carefully and plan, because when something becomes compulsory, it's compulsory not only for the children and their families, it's compulsory for the state to provide. So, as you say, what does provision mean? If we won't look at infrastructure necessarily now, but if you look at the number of teachers, that is where we have to have a focus on foundation phase teachers who are qualified to also teach grade R. So in 2024, when there was a lot of emphasis in Parliament on the Bella Bill before it was passed as an act, there was a lot of work done on the numbers. And the Financial and Fiscal Commission said that we would need an additional 6,500 grade R teachers if the teacher-pupil ratio was 1:40. Now, the grade R teachers that we had in 2024, some were paid by the state and some were paid by the school. And it's only the teachers that qualify to be appointed as teachers that were paid for by the state. So the costs for all of that was estimated by both the Treasury and Financial and Fiscal Commission to be an additional 5.2 billion annually. So it's imperative for departments to plan for all children in their province who are turning grade 6 next year, let's say, to be in school, to have a teacher in a reasonable class size and with a proper infrastructure, and to progressively over time make sure that those grade R teachers are qualified teachers, satisfy the minimum requirements.
Okay. Charmaine, thanks for explaining that, because offhand when we talk about the numbers and we remove the factor of the Bella Act just being implemented now, right, then I think there would be an alarm to say, oh my goodness, we've got a whole lot of unqualified teachers who are actually teaching my children. You're suggesting this is the result of a process, and this effectively being year one, and therefore this has to be phased in gradually because not enough of these teachers are experts at that level of grade R, right?
Absolutely. And it also is a critical planning issue. I was interested at the beginning of the 2025 school year that, in fact, I think all provinces more or less ignored the compulsory nature of grade R. And I'll tell you why I think that is because in all provinces, but the focus is often on Gauteng and Western Cape, there's a huge emphasis on applying for admission to schools in what was grade 1, but is now grade R. So before Bella became law in 2024, the admission process was well underway. It was more or less complete for grade 1. And there was no province scurrying around to say grade R is now compulsory. I must make sure that we quickly do something. I've seen on the Western Cape website, I haven't checked other provinces, that now for the admission for 2026, there's an emphasis on grade R. And that means that all parents with children turning 6 in 2026 need to be applying for grade R admission for next year.
Yeah. Okay. What then about these teachers? Let's go back to them. So, yes, it needs to be phased in, but when we talk about these 21% of grade R teachers not suitable for the job at this point in time, then, who are they and how do we move from a position of not suitable to suitable or unqualified to qualified?
So, all of these teachers, to my understanding, would be people in public schools would have some components, some units within the National Qualification Framework that prepares them on the path to accumulate credits to be teachers. So they might have 1 module, 2 modules, 3 modules, and they're working towards it. Now, I don't have a problem with that. It's realistic given the circumstances. But I would hope that all foundation phase units in a school operate as a team, collaborate, support each other. There would be a head of department who would play a supportive and supervisory role. Where I think this is often a little more complicated is in the early education learning centres, but I'll pause because I think you wanted to ask something.
Well, we're going to wrap up, so maybe just make your final point anyway, yeah?
Well, the final point is that we, in my view, and I'm passionate about this, not everyone agrees with me, but I can argue it, is that we need to make a very clear distinction between early education learning centres, which are community-driven, often run by entrepreneurial women, which education is not compulsory for that age group. It's encouraged. We need to get the early education learning centres registered, but these teachers are not state employees. In grade R, it's compulsory state employees, and we have to provide at the minimum standards.
Okay, and
Thank
therein lies the solution, and therein lies the challenge as well. And of course, those numbers, it's not just 21%, but it's actually beyond 21%. It could be more than that. Professor Mary Metcalf, Professor of Practice at the University of Joburg, much appreciate you connecting with us and sharing your insights here on the National Pulse. Let's get the news. It's 4 o'clock. Here's Ondela.
Thank you, Ashraf. On the top stories, Steenhuisen calls for urgent reforms as U.S. tariff hike looms, and Northern Cape police confiscate drugs found in a tree. For SAFM News, I am Ondela Mbana, and a very good afternoon. Agriculture Minister John Steenhuisen says the looming export tariff hike by the United States on South Africa shows that the country needs urgent reforms. U.S. President Donald Trump announced a 30% tariff on South African exports to the U.S. effective from the 1st of August. Steenhuisen says there's still time to negotiate before the tariffs kick in. He was delivering his department's 7.6 billion rand budget vote in Parliament.
Whilst not explicit, the announcement would signal the end of the African Growth and Opportunity Act, which gives South Africa's duty-free access to the US for more than 6,000 products, including goods and automobiles, agriculture and textile industries. The agriculture sector remains particularly exposed in the areas of citrus, wine, nuts and table grapes.
The ATM says it has written to the public protector, Kholeka Gcaleka, requesting her to investigate political interference, executive misconduct and the orchestrated collapse of the political killings task team under the alleged direction of Minister Senzo Mchunu as a matter of urgency. KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi at the weekend alleged that Mchunu was affiliated to persons linked to criminal activities. ATM spokesperson Zama Ntshona.
We argue in our letter that the minister's actions not only violate constitutional principles of accountability and conflict of interest, but also threaten the integrity of our criminal justice system. This is why we call on the public protector, Advocate Gcaleka, to put everything aside and focus on this particular matter, because this is a matter of national security.
Police at Pabalelo at Uppington in the Northern Cape have discovered drugs in a tree worth nearly R250,000. Police spokesperson Umpile Masegela says the discovery was made after a tip-off from the public.
The police followed up in the information and searched the identified area where they discovered Tik and Daga to the estimated value of over 200,000 rands. There were no arrests made and an inquiry was registered for further investigations.
Limpopo traffic authorities say a bus crash scene on the N1 between the Beitbridge border post and Musina has been cleared. The bus driver, aged 32, died when the vehicle collided with a stationary bakkie and later collided with a truck transporting copper. 8 others, including bus passengers, sustained injuries. Authorities suspect reckless and negligent driving as the possible cause of the collision. Transport Department spokesperson Didimalo Chwene.
It is reported that a truck lost control and collided with a light delivery vehicle and a bus. Sadly, the bus driver, who is male, was deceased at the scene. 4 bus passengers sustained moderate injuries, while 4 other passengers and 1 passenger from the light delivery vehicle suffered minor injuries. The possible cause of the accident appears to be reckless driving. As a department, we extend our deepest condolences to the family and the loved ones of the deceased. To those who are injured, we wish a speedy recovery.
The International Monetary Fund says debt vulnerability in sub-Saharan Africa is mounting due to high global uncertainty, tighter global financial conditions and rising borrowing costs. However, it says the region is tackling the issue head-on and public debt ratios have stabilized on average. According to the fund's analytical note in the latest regional economic outlook for sub-Saharan Africa data, countries aiming to sustainably reduce debt should seize the opportunity to tax and spend more efficiently. Nothando Magudulela reports.
Data shows that contrary to perception, countries in the region have often been able to stabilize or reduce their debt ratios without debt restructuring. IMF says the debt decline in many cases was economically significant and persistent. It says that sustained debt reduction typically reflects both budgetary consolidation and real economic growth. The IMF says key policymakers should ensure that fiscal adjustment is likely to result in stronger, more durable reductions in debt when complemented by pro-growth structural reforms and by measures to strengthen institutional frameworks.
Recapping the top story, Agriculture Minister John Steenhuisen says the looming export tariff hike by the United States on South Africa shows that the country needs urgent reforms. I am Ondalambana for SFM News Headlines at 4:30.
In your sports this hour, Proteas beat Zimbabwe 2-0 in Test Series. Leroux set for a 100th cap as Murat leads new look box against Italy, and Botswana looks to keep their calm against Super Falcons in WAFCON clash. More details at 4:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N3 northbound in Bedford is slow moving on the link to the N12 east at Kilulis interchange. The N12 westbound has a crash before the N1 Diepkloof interchange, and Linwood Road in Pretoria has roadworks reported with traffic restrictions at Linwood Ridge. In KZN, the N2 northbound has a stationary vehicle before Mgeni Road. In the N3 westbound, a crash before Hammersdale. In Cape Town, the N1 outbound slow moving towards Okavango Road, the M5 southbound is slow moving towards Milner Road, and Victoria Road outbound slow moving through Woodstock. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
The Twiga Stars want to impress the Tanzanians with maximum points, while Banyana Banyana won nothing but a win as a reminder that they are the continental champions. This is the Group C clash of the Total Energies Women's Africa Cup of Nations Morocco 2024. Catch the glittering clash between Tanzania and South Africa on Friday 11 July at 8:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus, SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and S3. Also available on SABC radio stations at 9 p.m. Where Africa competes, South Africa connects. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
I work at Optimia College. We offer distance learning solutions.
How is it that OUTsurance provided the solution for you?
918 Rand is what I'm saving.
Incredible.
Yeah.
You're helping people to do better, and OUTsurance is doing better for you.
Definitely. If OUTsurance will not be able to beat your current premiums, remember there's that 500 Rand that you could get.
Go to outsurance.co.za now for a 10-minute quote that could save you thousands.
Tell me, what brings you and OUTsurance together?
You know, Jacques, I've been battling to get a nice car insurance, man. Someone that can give you nice service. Whenever you call them, they're there for you. You know, OUTsurance, I found them. I'm saving a cool $360.
Why put yourself through the pain? Be like Jermaine.
Yes, be like Jermaine and sign up with OUTsurance.
Get the real deal with the real savings.
Yes, there we go. I made the right move.
Go to outsurance.co.za now for a 10-minute quote that could save you thousands. Licensed insurer and FSP. T's, C's, and information online.
This Mandela Month, SAFM celebrates the spirit of Ubuntu, calling on all South Africans to engage, uplift, and do good for one another. Let's share what we have, lend a helping hand, and honor Madiba's legacy through kindness and action. Join SAFM as we bring you powerful conversations, inspiring stories, and voices that drive change all month long. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
Just to pick up on that conversation about Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu. So we made the point that Trump has been nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize, and the nominations come from Benjamin Netanyahu. And Pepper now tweeting, saying, how can a wanted Zionist criminal be allowed to do a nomination of the Nobel Peace Prize? I'll leave it for you to answer that, because I think for a long time there's been a sense that the entire Nobel Peace Prize giving or offering has been very, very politicized anyway. Well, what is not politicized? You tell me. We'll talk about the South African medical aid schemes, getting their thoughts on issues of findings of discrimination against black medical professionals just now. But for now, let's talk about this. We know yesterday, in fact, did you have that conversation over supper around the pronouncements of Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi? Because many people did it over breakfast on Monday morning, and then supper Monday evening, and maybe over late lunch on a Sunday as well, right? So did you have that conversation with your family? What were you talking about, right? Because at the moment, there's not a person that I pass in some way or the other that they will make some comment about what happened then. Now, I say that because, as you know, those allegations were pretty damning because they go right to the very top in terms of a complete syndicate running the police, let's call it police capture for want of a better word, driven by some cartels in Gauteng. And the allegations go right to the top in terms of the Minister of Police. So the question is, do you call it a war of words or actual allegations? The president had to say ceasefire until I return home. What impact does all of this, proven or not, have on the police themselves, on the police service, on the SAPS, right? Let's get someone who knows all about reputation management, Tsepo Matseba, to comment about this. Tsepo is the MD of Reputation First. Appreciate your time as always on the National Pulse. Tsepo, hi.
Good afternoon, Ashraf, and thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. I mean, one of the many quotes that I've seen is this, and I'll mention this. When the police force's integrity is questioned, it tarnishes the image of every officer, regardless of their actions, and diminishes the moral authority of the entire institution. Does that sum it all up?
Oh, yes. Remember, one of the key ingredients or one of the key deliverables of the police is securing the country, protecting the country, and putting citizens first. And the minute at the level of that seniority where there's bickering, firstly, a few weeks ago, or maybe a week ago, someone far more senior was arrested, and now you bump into this type of a press conference with a lot of complicated optics where you would think that the South African police would coordinate amongst themselves so that they have a similar set of messages, whether information is good or bad, going to the public. And now you have this conference taking place, and you have a minister responding in bits and pieces or making comments, and then it gets to a point where the president has to swiftly respond. So it brings into scrutiny the level of trust that citizens would have in the integrity of the South African police as an ecosystem, as an instrument or a department that is capable of really building that public confidence.
Now, we also know that even up to now, there's already a low level of trust, I think, in the SAPS, mainly because of the high level of crime. So that may be unfair targeting the police for that, right? But the second part is there have been many stories of police, even at low level. We're talking about at the local police station falling victim to corruption. And we hear that every single day. But in this case here, you're going to the very, very top. So the entire edifice of the SAPS could well crumble. Am I over-exaggerating the significance of this?
No, absolutely not. So when you look at the level of seniority, a deputy police commissioner, national police commissioner responsible for crime detection, and that's a serious role that's involved in the allegations. The minister, that's a serious role. A commissioner who makes the allegations in a province, KwaZulu-Natal, and making these allegations that impact almost various provinces. It's a very significant role. And then you have a national commissioner who said to have said absolutely nothing when around these allegations creates further problems. We know that there must be protocols within the police in terms of levels of authority and how nationally impactful announcements ought to be made. But this is now out, and now we have to ask the question: what happened to the KZN police commissioner for him to say what he has said? Why would the minister not be in a position to proactively engage? What prompted this conversation to happen in the way that it has happened? And therefore, when you assess all of that, you start to get a sense that we can't, perhaps as citizens, trust these senior officials. And therefore, as a result, if you are a visitor to South Africa, if you are an investor to South Africa, you have to wonder, can I trust in the safety of the system in South Africa? And I think there's a problem there.
Do you think that's a question that foreign nationals, I don't mean individuals, I'm also talking about diplomatic corps, big businesses, is that a question they'd be asking themselves right now?
Oh yes, I mean definitely, and that's why President Cyril Ramaphosa came out strongly, saying that this is a matter of national security, and that they would need to calm down until he's back, so that he can have actually exercise restraint, so that he has an opportunity to engage with the leadership team, because it's not only a risk, but it is an embarrassment, isn't it, when you go through platforms such as the BBC, Reuters, all the major international platforms are beginning to talk about this story. And the optics and the media coverage, the impact on perceptions towards South Africa as a brand, South Africa as a country, South Africa as an investable destination, bring into scrutiny whether we are capable. Remember, we are also at the final stages of trying to exit the grey listing. And in the context of this, part of it is in grey listing. Part of the problems that they mentioned is corruption and the inability to manage corruption. And so the minute you have these serious allegations leveled by a senior official, not any other person, a senior official in the police, everybody is tarnished, but citizens lose trust. Investors lose trust, visitors to the country lose trust, but businesses in South Africa begin to have questions about what actually happens every single day on the streets of South Africa, and how involved are the police in the problems that we're facing as a country.
Okay, so let's agree. I mean, at this point in time, it is allegations. Nothing's been proven, right? But they certainly come from people who are high up, right? Is the damage irreparable, or is that damage reversible? And what would it take? If the answer is the latter, what would it take to move from damage to reversal damage?
So damage for any brand, especially a country brand such as the South African Police, is possible. You have to work towards a path of rebuilding trust, and in that process of restoration, you need to take some decisive action from a leadership perspective to address the allegations transparently. So somebody has to come out and tell us precisely what has happened, who was involved, whether it's correct or wrong, right or wrong, whether anyone is guilty or this remains an allegation, but the facts need to play out in public, so that you are able to regain the public confidence. The leaders themselves must also reassure the public that, in fact, such allegations will not compromise the police services' ability to maintain safety and security, and tell people how, because we know that the reputational risks posed by these allegations are substantial. And so simply saying that we've done a little inquiry or announce an inquiry that takes months and maybe years may not be enough. You're going to need to start talking now and be the first to speak, because the allegations were made. The only opportunity you have now is to actually, as a South African Police Service, as the security cluster, as someone like President Cyril Ramaphosa, who's accountable for all of this, who hires and fires ministers, there you need to start speaking proactively and telling people how accountability and the rule of law are going, and commitment to justice are going to take shape and take a center stage over and above all the personalities. That's how you win the game. And of course, trust can be rebuilt over a period of time. But the starting point is to acknowledge the reality, deal with the facts, and be transparent, and do so consistently.
Now, later on, we'll be chatting to Jeff Wicks, who's got even further news about let's call it dirty business within the police service. We'll get to that after 5 o'clock, right? But yes, the last thing then to leave you with, Tsepo. So, yes, I mean, an investigation has to be made. Some may say criminal charges may be laid, and that could take a while. But in terms of coming to a full investigation. But in terms of managing the country reputation, very quickly, what should the president be doing right now?
So firstly, he's correct to be taking some time to consult and interpret what just happened and get the facts. But the second thing is perhaps to start asking some of the senior officials to excuse themselves temporarily while he's making the investigations, because while he's trying to figure out, because without people stepping aside, so to speak, you have a serious problem of an image that's tarnished, and that's going to continue to be tarnished unless he himself, as the president, requests, especially those who are reporting to him directly, those such as a minister. It would be the right thing for them to step aside a little bit for the process to unfold and for the facts to play out in public.
And that would be the Minister of Police is number one, right? right? Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, let's leave it at that. Tsepo Matseba, the MD of Reputation
Thank you so
First.
much.
And in this case, thank you for that, Tsepo. Looking at the reputation of the country and the South African Police Service in terms of how we perceive it as a people, but also how the nations of the world perceive it in the light of what has happened over the last few days. And those allegations have not ended. Listen to the conversation with Jeff Wicks coming up at 5:20. And you may just say, once again, Matt Aish. Well, it certainly is the National Pulse.
30 years ago, a moment united a nation. From Ellis Park to every township and village, we stood together. One people, one dream, one victory. Now, the vibration rises again. From the heart of Mzansi to every corner of the country. The four-time world champions, the mighty Springboks, take on the Azuri in a clash where history meets destiny. This is more than a match. It's a country moment, only on SABC. Celebrate the 30th anniversary of our 1995 Rugby World Cup victory. Watch South Africa versus Italy, Saturday 12 July at 4 p.m. Live on SABC2 and streaming on SABC+. Also available on SABC radio stations at 5 p.m. Download the SABC Plus app now. Switch, stream, no subscription. SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Okay, so let's get comment from you on the conversation we had around the reputation of these SAPS, as well as just, let's call it brand South Africa or South Africa Inc. in the light of what has happened and what should South Africa be doing next. So I welcome your comments, as always, 086 000 2032 to call in live, and then WhatsApp 0614 104 107. And wonderful people are tweeting. Use the hashtag The National Pulse when you tag SFM Radio and myself. If you want to do a picture of yourself and send it off via WhatsApp or tweet it out to say, hey, where you listening from with your dial locked onto SFM, that's absolutely great as well. That'd be pretty cute, I think, if you did just that. Okay, so let's get on to this other issue. Yesterday I had a chat with the Minister of Health, Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi. By the way, you can listen to that podcast as well. Just go to safm.co.za. So we chatted, right? And we spoke about the inquiry into allegations of racial discrimination by medical aid schemes that found that medical aid schemes had unfairly treated black healthcare providers and practitioners. So let's get reaction from that and just how damning may it be and the implications thereof, right? In fact, we're going to get, firstly, let me do this. We're going to play the clip of Aaron Motsoaledi because this is what he said.
Well, their findings were quite dire, as you're saying, because some doctors were targeted so much that they had to close their practice because they say the practice, once they investigate you and say, look, we've made findings against you, we've checked for the past 3 years, you owe us 2 million rand. Please sign an admission of guilt. Sign a debt admission that you owe us. And if we don't, we're not going to pay you. In other words, when people come to your practice holding our medical scheme, we won't pay you anything. Now, that doctor is out of practice because they must get cash from the patients, even those with medical aids, who won't agree and they'll go elsewhere. So the report says that some doctors were actually taken out of practice.
Okay, that's what he said. Let's get reaction with Dr. Mbuyizi Mzukwa, who's the South African, representing the South African Medical Association, the chairperson there. I appreciate your time and thanks for connecting to us on the National Pulse.
Good afternoon to you, Ashraf, and your listeners, and thanks for inviting me.
Thank you. I mean, I think the story already was discussed at length yesterday in terms of discrimination in this case here, certainly with regard to black healthcare workers, but rather providers and practitioners. You also heard the Minister of Health in terms of his comments about how it actually robbed people of their livelihoods, right? And to the point of no return. What do you make of it and what needs to be happening next?
Well, Ashraf, we were part of this the steering committee that was established by the Council for Medical Schemes back then in 2019, when these allegations surfaced. Then you'll recall that at that time, black health providers and organizations they claimed that there was unfair treatment by schemes based on race and ethnicity. And it is then that the Council for Medical Schemes then established the independent panel, the Section 59 investigation panel, to investigate these claims and provide recommendations, which they did. They submitted this to the minister, and the minister had obviously have that media briefing. Now, we welcome this as an association, that there's these findings and recommendations. But the important thing is that I think as an association, we would like to express our disappointment that, for so long, between 2012 and 2019, there is a section of society, professionals that really suffered in the new dispensation in South Africa. And we think that there should be, as it was recommended, mitigation, to stop this, and that everybody is treated according to what the constitution of the country requires, so that they could continue to flourish and be allowed a space to practice.
So I mean, therefore, what are the implications now? That means, what is the state of the entire medical fraternity as you see it, and what can happen next? I mean, so there's been findings. The question is, often we have findings, and then what?
I think we've got a regulator. The regulator is the Council for Medical Schemes. I think they need to lead this process in terms of getting the stakeholders together, so that, because the main issue that was a problem was the fact that these processes were not transparent. All these algorithms and processes, to follow on fraud, waste, and abuse, they were not really transparent. And all we need is transparency. And I want to insist, Ashraf, that the association does not condone fraud, waste, and abuse. But all you are saying, those processes must be transparent and they must be fair when there's implementation of these processes. That's all we are insisting. So we believe that if there are changes, even in the legislation, because what used to happen, Ashraf, is that medical aids would just choose to investigate you from, for example, 2020 up until now. That is unfair. You'll also understand that as a practitioner, if you have not claimed from a medical aid, say a patient saw you in January this year, and you put out a claim now in June, you won't get that money because you are given a four months period, to retrieve that money. You cannot go back to that long. But medical aids, unfairly, they go even more than 3 years back, trying to claw back whatever they think it was a fraud from the practitioner. So we are saying that is very, very unfair.
Right. So lastly, I understand there's also been the establishment of a help desk, right? Explain what that means and what do you think will come out of it?
Now, our understanding is that even with that help desk, we should be having an input as practitioners. But what we believe is that it is going to help people understand, and that Section 59, and also how to conduct these. What is the expectation when these fraud, waste, and abuse processes are being implemented? That's the main issue, because we want fairness. Even if the practitioner is wrong, the practitioner must be treated fairly. That's all we are asking for. You can't have a person who just demands that must be given documents. Ashraf, this is so difficult because at times they want you to provide medical notes. You know that there is confidential information there. Before you release that information, you must have gotten a consent from the owner of that information, that is the patient. And you might find that a patient that we have seen in 2020 has moved to other countries or has changed the cell phone number, whatever the case is. And when you raise these things, you are told, no, you are denying us access to files, when actually you don't have consent to be given those files in the first place.
All right, lots to consider. And upon reflection with that conversation with Dr. in this case here, the chairperson of the South African Medical Association, Dr. Mbuyizi Mzukwa. Appreciate your time here on the National Pulse, and reaction, as always, is most welcome. Let's hear from you. Now, let's get the news headlines.
Thank you, Ashraf. On the news headlines, Eastern Cape police have arrested a 22-year-old suspect in connection with 3 murders and 2 attempted murders at Kariega in the Eastern Cape. Agriculture Minister Johnston Hazen says the looming export tariff hike by the United States on South Africa shows that the country needs urgent reforms, and the first malaria treatment suitable for babies and very young children has been approved for use and is expected to be rolled out in Africa within weeks. A full update follows at the top of the hour with Greg Hose.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N1 northbound in Pretoria has a crash reported before Rigel Avenue, and the N3 in Bedfordview has a crash on the link to the N12 east at Gillies interchange. In KZN, the M7 St. John's Avenue queuing through central Pinetown, the N2 southbound has a crash before the M4 highway, and on the M7, truck congestion reported at South Coast Road. In Cape Town, the N2 Nelson Mandela Boulevard outbound queuing towards Hospital Bend, the M5 southbound queuing towards Milner Road, and the M7 Jakes Harold Drive southbound in Mitchell's Plain has roadworks reported with traffic restrictions at Samora Michelle, and that's causing some delays. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
Okay, it could be you feeling lucky. If you are, play Powerball and Powerball Plus for 60 million rands in total. For this estimated jackpot this Tuesday. You could win big, right? Play Powerball for an estimated 56 million rands, and then Powerball Plus for 4 million rands estimated, right? Buy your tickets now in store on the nationallottery.co.za, the mobile app, cell phone banking, or simply dial star 120 star 7529 or 4 USSD. Panda Push-Up Play. Players must be 18 years or older. Play responsibly. Ituba is the proud operator of the National Lottery.
This is SAFM Sports with Tumi Nkapele.
Right, sports locally, sports globally. Tumi has it all.
Starting off with cricket this hour, where South Africa beat Zimbabwe by an innings and 236 runs in the second test to complete a 2-0 series win. At the start of play, Zimbabwe were 51 for 1 in their second innings, trailing by 405. They lost their last 6 wickets for just 67 runs and were ultimately bundled out for 220 as they fell well short of their target. Sima Corbin Bosch led the Proteas bowling attack, taking 4 for 38, while spinner Seniran Mutusami grabbed 3 for 77. And this is the Proteas' biggest margin of victory in a test match and their most convincing win against Zimbabwe. In rugby, Willie Leroux will earn his 100th test cap when the Proteas take on Italy in Gqeberha on Saturday in the second match of the Castle Lager incoming series. Now, the Boks have made several changes to the team, with Salma Murat set to captain the side in Siya Kolisi's absence. 3 uncapped players, Asenati Ntlabakanye, Kobus Visser, and Ethan Hooker, have been named on the bench and could make their test debuts. Murat is one of 7 players retained from the team that beat Italy 42-24 in Pretoria last week. Then in football, SABC Sport has learned that Orlando Pirates are in advanced talks to loan out Munapule Saleng to newly promoted Betway Premiership side Orbit College. Now, Saleng struggled for game time last season, making just 5 appearances with his last outing in December against Al Ahly. While there were no rumors linking him to move to the Egyptian Giants, nothing has been confirmed by Pirates that explains why Saleng was sidelined. Meanwhile, Botswana head coach Alex Malete says that he has instructed his team to remain calm when they face Nigeria in their second WAFCON Group B clash on Thursday. Now, the Maize will look to redeem themselves, coming on the back of a 1-0 loss to Algeria in the tournament opener. Now, Malete says that they look to express themselves more against Nigeria to make sure that they don't repeat the same mistakes from the previous match. Then finally, in tennis, Mira Andreeva says that she had completely forgotten the score. This is after not realizing that she had beaten Emma Navarro to reach the quarterfinals of Wimbledon for the first time. Andreeva had 3 match points on Navarro's serve and converted the first with a netted shot from Navarro, confirming a 6-2, 6-3 win for the Russian. Now, Navarro approached the net to congratulate her opponent, and the center court crowd stood to applaud, but Andreeva was off court preparing to face serve before it clicked that she had won. With that said, it is a wrap from my side for now. I'll have more in the next hour.
I tell you what, thanks for that, to me. I've been looking at South Africa's, they've clearly had these exploits, right? Thrashing Zimbabwe, but we need to put this into perspective. Now, we know we also now have a player in Vian Mulder who's now South Africa's top scorer, but South Africa winning today against Zimbabwe by an innings and 236 runs. And I just have to say it because, honestly, you have to reflect on this, right? South Africa won by an innings and 236. In the previous test match, South Africa beat Zimbabwe. Well, South Africa won by 328 runs. Okay, Zimbabwe lost to England by an innings and 45. I'm going downwards. They lost to Bangladesh by an innings and 106 runs. Then they beat Bangladesh by 3 wickets. They lost to Ireland by 63 runs. They lost to Afghanistan by 72 runs. And they also drew with Afghanistan. These are all test matches. So bottom line, Zimbabwe have not won a test through 2024. Prior home win was in 2013. The last test win against Afghanistan being in March 2021, right? And the only win in that stretch versus Bangladesh, that's April 2025, that one anomaly. But other than that, 8 losses in another 10 matches and have not won a home test since 2013. You just have to wonder. This is test cricket, which really, I think, comes from the word you get the ultimate test. And there's always going to be strong teams and weaker teams. But this particular Zimbabwe team, when you look at South Africa's big records, you have to factor in the state of this team and just where would they match up if they even played provincial cricket in South Africa. I think they'd struggle, quite honestly. This is the National Pulse.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195 and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
The Twiga Stars want to impress the Tanzanians with maximum points, while Banyana Banyana won nothing but a win as a reminder that they are the continental champions. This is the Group C clash of the Total Energies Women's Africa Cup of Nations Morocco 2024. Catch the glittering clash between Tanzania and South Africa on Friday 11 July at 8:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus, SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and S3. Also available on SABC radio stations at 9 p.m. Where Africa competes, South Africa connects. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
The Morning Brief.
Why does all of this matter now, now that we have this democratic South Africa underpinned by a lot of what the Freedom Charter entailed?
There are a lot of weaknesses in the Freedom Charter itself. I mean, there's nothing that's perfect and excellent. And with the exaggeration of praise that the Freedom Charter has been given, a blind eye has been turned on its fundamental weaknesses. First, the issue of land. And the other thing is that, as Sobukwe said, the Freedom Charter seemed to increase the division of people on a permanent basis. And he said this was apartheid multiplied.
That's Jackie Siroke, who is a PAC National Executive Committee member.
Tulasizwe Simelane on The Morning Brief. Find the podcast at safm.co.za.
This business feature is sponsored by CFI, an authorized financial services provider, a global leader in online trading now available in South Africa. Visit cfi.trade today.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Right, let's connect to the markets with Makwe Masilela, Chief Investment Officer at Makwe Fund Managers. You've got news both locally and globally, so go for it, Makwe.
Afternoon to you, Ashraf. Yes, Trump left the door open for additional trade talks, providing a reprieve to markets after imposing new tariff rates on several countries, South Africa included, and stocks have recovered from their April plunge when sweeping levies were first announced, fueled by expectations that the tariff deadline will be extended, and we've seen that happening yesterday. And based on Trump's pattern of threatening first and backing down later, the rand fell as much as 1.7% after Trump's love letter about our 30% tariff, leading declines among our emerging market peers. That's before recovering all the losses as the dollar retreated after sharp gains overnight. And remember, the US is our largest destination for our exports after China, accounting for almost 156 billion last year. Major imports are our precious stones, and metals, organic chemicals, and edible fruit. And our talks with the US are delayed because 2 weeks back, the US presented us with a template for all trade deals on which Washington's plans to engage in sub-Saharan Africa. So we then asked for a suspension of the proposed tariffs while we are reworking our offering in line with that template, and we are yet to receive that template. Investors took in their stride the latest twist in US tariffs rollout compared to the sharp declines to witness in the aftermath of what Trump called Liberation Day 3 months ago. Oil traders assessing the impact of Trump's tariffs hikes on key trade partners, as well as lingering oversupply concerns from rising OPEC plus output. Brent crude is down 0.3% at $69 a barrel, and the euro metal weighed by higher yields on reduced bets on interest rate cuts. We see gold is down 0.8% at 3,308. Platinum also down 0.8% at 1,356. Global markets are mixed with the JSE flat as our resources are weighing down on us. Our resources are down 1%. The rand firmed 0.1% against the US dollar is now 17.82, 24.12 against the pound, and 20.84 against the euro.
Right, perfect. Thanks for that, Makwe. We'll connect again with you tomorrow. And don't forget, there's an hour of dipping to the markets with Jimmy Moyaha coming up from between 6 to 7. But very shortly, I want to get your thoughts because, as always, we have the sense of what is the national pulse, and you have your own sense of it all. You are always on the pulse. We'll hear from you in a moment.
Hi, I'm Lewis Hamilton. Victory demands everything, but the journey is never solo. My team carves the way, data and innovation are my compass. This is how today's champions are made.
Trade like a champion with CFI. Access over 15,000 instruments, advanced trading tools, 24/7 support, and superior trading services. Visit cfi.trade today. CFI Financial Markets LLC is a Category 1 licensed broker by the UAE Securities and Commodities Authority. Trading involves high risk.
CFI, empower yourself.
Thank you for tuning in to today's business feature, proudly sponsored by CFI, a leading trading app now available in South Africa. Download it now. Visit cfi.trade today.
Right, let's do this. I want to pick out lots of questions about what are the funeral plans for the former Deputy President of South Africa, David Mabuza. Now, the ANC Secretary General is Fikile Mbalula, and he spoke outside the home of David Mabuza earlier today in Barberton, in fact, and he touched on a few things, including, some of the plans around the funeral itself. This is what he had to say. All right, we will get to that in just a moment.
Of the province, our provincial secretary, as well as other officials of the province present here, and the Provincial Executive Committee, leaders of the ANC Youth League in the province, leaders of the ANC Women's League, the Veterans League of the ANC, as well as members of the Tripartite Alliance are present here today. The African National Congress wishes to update the nation on the memorial and funeral program for our departed comrade, former Deputy President of the Republic and Deputy President of the African National Congress, Comrade David Dabede Mabuza. As the ANC, we are in deep mourning as we remember a cadre who lived and died in service of the people of South Africa. The outpouring of condolences and expressions of solidarity from every corner of our country and the world reaffirms the stature of Comrade Didi Mabuza as a unifier, a humble servant of the people and a disciplined leader of our movement. As the ANC, together with the Mabuza family, government and our alliance partners, we are working to ensure that Comrade Didi receives a dignified farewell, befitting of his contribution to our democratic dispensation and to the lives of countless South Africans, especially in the rural heartland where he began his political journey. Over the course of this week, tribute sessions and organized visits have been and will be taking place across all regions of Mpumalanga. This is to allow different sectors of society, from the mass democratic movement, community leaders, diplomatic representatives, farmers associations, business people, traditional leaders and healers to pay their last respect and reflect on Comrade Mabuza's profound legacy. These activities include family and organizational visits from the 7th to the 9th of July 2025. Visits and tributes have been organized by structures of the ANC, including the Provincial Executive Committee of Mpumalanga Province, the leagues, the Umkhonto weSizwe Liberation War veterans and alliance partners, as well as diplomatic missions, sister liberation movements and local stakeholders. Daily tribute sessions Monday to Wednesday will be held from 10 to 14 hours and 17 hours, with a special Umanyano session on Wednesday at 14 hours. Regional memorial services will take place on Thursday in 3 regions in Mpumalanga.
Okay, and now just some more detail about the actual funeral service.
The official funeral service will take place on Saturday, 12 July 2025, in a program led by the President of the Republic of South Africa and coordinated with the Mabuza family and the ANC. The funeral will receive full military honor, Category 2, as declared by the State President. Details of the funeral service, seating, protocol, and live stream information will be issued by the Office of the Premier of Mpumalanga, the Presidency, and the Mpumalanga ANC Provincial Office in due course. Comrade Didi Mabuza life was a living embodiment of the Freedom Charter's call that, I quote, "South Africa belongs to all who live in it." His love for the landless, his concern for the child in the furthest rural classroom, and his belief in unity will remain guiding lights for this generation and the next. As the ANC, we call on all our members, supporters, and all South Africans to use this moment of mourning to reaffirm our shared commitment to dignity, justice, and people-centered leadership. We shall continue to walk in his footsteps with humility, with discipline, and with the understanding that to serve is to lead.
To serve is to lead, according to the Secretary General of the African National Congress, reflecting on the life and the passing away of the former Deputy President of South Africa ahead of the weekend funeral. I'll take your comments, calls, WhatsApps, text messages, tweets, all of that after this.
Nelson Mandela once said, "There can be no greater gift than that of giving one's time and energy to helping others without expecting anything in return."
What's your Mandela Day game plan this year? Why not lace up those sneakers and hit the ground running at our annual Mandela Day Walk and Run on July 19th at the DP World Wanderers Stadium, Ilovo. You can walk 5Ks, run 10 and 21Ks, and still have enough energy to have fun. It's a whirlwind of fun and laughter, all for a fantastic cause. Every cent goes to support the excellent work of the Nelson Mandela Foundation. Enter on mandeladay.com or register for the virtual race on fundnation.org/Nelson Mandela. See you there.
This Mandela Month, Nelson Mandela once said,
"We have traveled a long journey. We have fought for peace and reconciliation, for social justice, for all men, women, and children."
SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. Ashraf Garda on the National Pulse.
Still more to come. We'll chat to Jeff Wicks later on about, well, further revelations, I should say, around the issues of the comments of Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi, specifically zooming in on Vusimuzi Cat Mhlala. Listen out for that. And before that, we chat to the CEO of Business Unity South Africa for another take on the implications of that 30% plus 10% tariff from the USA, right? But let's get to you. I want to hear what you have to say. Tsepo in Pretoria, you're live on the National Pulse. Go for it.
Ashraf,
yep.
I'm a resident of Gauteng, and what Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi said in relation to Gauteng being the hub of drug cartels or where they're manufacturing the drugs.
Yeah,
I'm really concerned because, I'm just wondering about the officials in Gauteng, and that, the bosses, the brigadiers, and all the people at the top. The commissioner, actually, the provincial commissioner of Gauteng, if they are also not implicated. Because imagine if Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi can find out information about Gauteng while he's in KZN. What about those who are imagine finding out about you at the backyard of your house.
Well, you're right.
So I'm concerned, what it says about our safety here in Gauteng in terms of these, the commissioners also, because he's implicated by saying that this is the hub and this is where they start and then they spread around the country.
Well, I think you're right. And so if he's picking it up from KZN, then your point is, what about the people in Gauteng? Do they know about it or don't they know? It's bad if they know about it and they do nothing, and it's bad if they don't know about it. Either way, I hear what you're saying, and I understand your concern, Tsepo in Pretoria. Thank you for adding that. What about anybody else in Gauteng, by the way? Joburg, Soweto, and the other townships that make up the city and the suburbs of Gauteng. In the light of the comments that we've just heard, Butana in Rosebank. Well, there you are. You're in Joburg. Butana, hello.
Hi, my brother.
Yeah, good man.
Ashraf, good afternoon.
Good afternoon indeed. Right, go for it.
You know, ANC leaders have a history to associate with criminals. Remember Jackie Silebi? Remember the wife of the Minister of Intelligence? The wife of Minister of Intelligence. Now this, and as if it's not enough, President and his team, they go and badmouth in Trump White House. We will hope that they'll get the mercy from Trump. They did not get that. Tariffs 30%. Diogaran was killed, and this person that is they say he's associated with the minister. He had contracts in that hospital.
I certainly hear that. Listen out for the conversation we can have just now after 5. Butana, your point well taken, and it's a huge cause for concern. Khotso in Midrand, also in the Gauteng region. Khotso, hello.
Yeah, afternoon, Ashraf.
Afternoon indeed. Right, go for it.
Look. Yeah, firstly, let me say I'm 100%. I'm supporting General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi sitting in Gauteng, and in an overwhelming support which I'm giving him. But Ashraf, I will tell you here now that, for example, go to Pretoria and look most of the clubs which are hovering around your Pretoria East, your Main Lane, your Brooklyn, your there where the stake is, your Hartfield, even in the CPT. You are going to see how the drug lords are running the capital city. These drug lords, I will tell you here now. This is facts which I'm telling you here, Atrap. I'm not asking you. These drug lords are the ones who are in cahoots with these police generals. You see, these high-ranking police generals are the ones who are working with these drug lords. Ask yourself why these Nyaope and other drugs are so easily found within South Africa. With the help, yes, of
So
course.
why do you think why do you think it can't be stopped then? Because?
Yeah, it's because the police are working with these drug lords. Look, Ashraf, you were given a statement which I think you are also wrong. What Hantam Corners was saying there on Sunday, it was having even facts. Because you say, no, you still want to. Some corners, you can go now if maybe you miss it. Let me help you. Go and watch it again. Whatever Santam Corners was saying was even having facts. Don't forget that Santam Corners is a trained legal somebody. It didn't just talk from nowhere.
Yeah, but it has to be. I hear what you're saying, but it has to be tested in court. It has to be tested in court. It has to be.
It's fine.
Yeah.
No. He even said that even the judiciary. You see the manner in which we are crying about this corrupt judiciary in our country. The judges, the prosecutors, the magistrates. They are found to be part of this web of corruption,
Okay. Yeah.
which we are crying about here, Asraf.
Okay.
Just unfortunately, but we are giving the support here. We are watching. We are
Okay.
we're still waiting for President Ramaphosa to give us a response because we need a way forward from here.
Okay, well, what would be an adequate response? Hotso in Midrand, thank you for that. Well, what would be an adequate response? We'll see about it. The president, I think, should be arriving sometime today. I know he left Brazil yesterday. Here's another comment, Khojani in Kroonstad. Yeah, let's talk about the medical aid issue that came up earlier. And go for it. Hello.
Good day, Mr. Ashraf.
Good day. Just Ashraf, no
How are
Mr.
you?
No, couple Mr.
Okay.
Yeah. Mm.
All right. Look, the case of medical schemes and medical aids, I think it's a case of animal farm where certain animals are more bigger than others. I go to school with you, the same school. We qualify with the same qualification, becoming opticians, and when I establish my practice, same time as yourself, you have been excluded as a black person. I know of a practitioner here in Kroonstad, whom I went personally because I had medical aid. I went there, I wanted to be treated, I needed some new glasses, and he told me that the medical aid does not cover his practice. And I went the same to the other medical aid, and then I was helped. So I want to find out. I did not even ask what could be the problem, but he said the medical aid, it does not, cover his practice. So I don't understand having the same same qualifications, and me being excluded because of the color of my skin or because I don't belong to a certain body of practitioners. How is it? Is it not a question of registering with a medical aid? Me being a person who is in need, looking for help, I can get it anywhere. Why is it still that case?
Well, I don't have the answer why, because clearly it's not acceptable. That's really what it is. It's not acceptable. And why is that the case? What has flourished for, organizations or medical schemes to make these type of calls based on the basis of, race or color or creed? They can answer for themselves. Is it right? Of course it's not right. Has it robbed people of their livelihoods? Yes, as per the Minister of Health yesterday. Listen to that conversation if you've missed it. And if you have heard it already, maybe listen again and then share it amongst your networks, because I think they need to be able to hear that. It's that important. So we'll get Business Unity to talk about tariffs in a moment, and then we'll get a further revelation in these days of daily revelations, as per Jeff Weeks from News 24. But let's get the news now. It's 5 o'clock, and here is Greg Hose.
Thank you, Ashraf. In this news update, arrests over Eastern Cape murders and new malaria treatment for babies. Good day to you. Police have arrested a 22-year-old suspect in connection with 3 murders and 2 attempted murders at Kariga in the Eastern Cape. Police say in the first incident, police found the body of a 22-year-old male with multiple gunshot wounds. In the second incident in the same area, suspects stormed a house and opened fire on the occupants, killing 2 women. Police spokesperson Sandra Janse van Rensburg.
Both these 2 incidents were investigated by the Provincial Organised Crime Anti-Gang Unit, and after thorough investigation, the members identified an alleged suspect involved in the murders and attempted murder cases. On Monday, the 7th of July, at approximately 4:30 the afternoon, they arrested the suspect at his residence in Tyrieville, Kariga. The suspect will appear in the Kariga Magistrate Court on Wednesday, the 9th of July.
The organisation Undoing Tax Abuse, or OUTers, urged the Department of Transport to extend the validity period of driving licences to 10 years instead of the proposed 8 years. This comes after the department confirmed plans to extend the validity period from 5 to 8 years to address administrative backlogs caused by frequent breakdowns of the country's only driver's licence card machine. The proposal is currently under review and is expected to be presented in Parliament in the final quarter of the financial year. OUTers Wayne Duvenage.
Most countries around the world are at an average of 10 years, some 15, even 20, to just renew the card. And this is, quite frankly, a money-making scheme. And it's sad to see government, one of the explanations when they said they're looking at it because they want to see what the financial implication is to government, which implies that they think that this government department is a for-profit department, when actually government should be thinking with its head and saying what's best for the public, what's best for the country. And it is to extend it to 10, even longer. But they don't think that way, sadly.
The Agriculture Minister John Steenhuisen says the looming export tariff hike by the US on South Africa shows that the country needs urgent reforms. US President Donald Trump announced a 30% tariff on South African exports to the US effective from the 1st of August. The minister says there's still time to negotiate before the tariffs kick in.
Whilst we can breathe a sigh of relief that this tariff did not come into effect as it was due to tomorrow, it does give us an opportunity to urgently use the next few weeks to be able to try and negotiate a way forward to prevent this. Whilst not explicit, the announcement would signal the end of the African Growth and Opportunity Act, which gives South Africa's duty-free access to the US for more than 6,000 products, including goods and automobiles, agriculture and textile industries. The agriculture sector remains particularly exposed in the areas of citrus, wine, nuts, and table grapes.
The first malaria treatment suitable for babies and very young children has been approved for use and is expected to be rolled out in Africa within weeks. The BBC's Dominic Hughes has more.
In 2023, malaria was linked to almost 600,000 deaths, around 3/4 of them in children under 5 years old. Malaria treatments do exist, but until now there were none specifically for the very youngest babies and small children. Doses for older children may not be safe for babies whose liver functions are still developing and who process medicines differently. The new treatment, developed by the drug company Novartis, has been approved by authorities in Switzerland and is likely to be rolled out in the worst-hit regions within weeks.
A young South African fur seal is receiving treatment at Ushaka Marine World SeaWorld in Durban after 5 fish hooks had to be removed from his mouth. The seal, nicknamed Captain Hook, apparently developed a taste for fishing bait used by fishermen. However, veterinarian Francois Lampin says he's concerned as Captain Hook might require surgery to remove a fishing hook stuck in his throat.
We were hoping that he'd be able to pass it. There are seals that get fish that have a lot of spines and things like that, so they're actually able to accommodate those things. We did follow up x-rays this morning. Those showed us that the hook is still present, so we suspect that it's just attached to the side of the throat and we'll have to go in there surgically and remove it.
The top story is that police have arrested a suspect in connection with 3 murders and 2 attempted murders in the Eastern Cape. That's SAFM News, I'm Greg Goss.
In your headlines this hour, Proteas beat Zimbabwe 2-0 in Test Series, and Leroux set for a 100th cap as Murat leads New Look box against Italy. More details at 5:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N1 southbound in four ways queuing towards Winneman Drive. The N3 southbound in Germiston is queuing towards Geldnys Interchange, and Houghton Drive in Parktown has delays near Newton Street. In KZN, the M7 has truck congestion reported at South Coast Road, the N3 westbound, a crash before Hammersdale, and on the M7 St John's Avenue, queuing traffic reported through central Pinetown. In Cape Town, the N1 outbound, a stationary vehicle after Marine Drive exit, Jan van Riebeeck Drive southbound in Parow is slow moving towards Epping Avenue, and Strand Road eastbound in Stickland, slow moving towards the R300 highway. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
Nelson Mandela once said, "There can be no greater gift than that of giving one's time and energy to helping others without expecting anything in return."
What's your Mandela Day game plan this year? Why not lace up those sneakers and hit the ground running at our annual Mandela Day Walk and Run on July 19th at the DP World Wanderers Stadium, Ilovo. You can walk 5Ks, run 10 and 21Ks, and still have enough energy to have fun. It's a whirlwind of fun and laughter, all for a fantastic cause. Every cent goes to support the excellent work of the Nelson Mandela Foundation. Enter on mandeladay.com or register for the virtual race on fundnation.org/Nelson Mandela. See you there.
Night Talk with Oliver Dixon.
You and I have a country to build, difficult conversations to have, solutions to find, and stories to tell. Join me, Oliver Dixon, on Night Talk every Monday to Thursday from 10 p.m. to midnight.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
Well, great that you joined us, and I hope you've been with us for the previous 2 hours already. But if you just joined in too, don't forget we start the show at 3 o'clock every day. So whatever you've missed is available as a podcast, and if you've listened already, you can re-listen to the podcast. Just go to sfm.co, or we tweet it out on our social media pages, so X as well as Facebook too, right? I'm just looking, by the way, at a fascinating tweet from Kaya Dlanga, and this is what he says. Hear me out, he says. General Mkhwanazi could launch a credible political party if he wanted to. Let me be clear. I'm not here to praise him or to push for it. I'm just laying out the scenario. I am not saying he will do it or even should. But if he did, it would be one to watch. And his reach wouldn't be provincial either. His public support cuts across the republic, making his potential party far more formidable than anything Floyd Shivambu might try to muster, especially given his recent political gymnastics. Why could it work? Well, according to the 2025 Kantar Mzansi Barometer report, crime consistently ranks as a top concern for South Africans. Mkhwanazi has effectively become a national symbol of the fight against criminals, not just on KZN. From Gauteng to Limpopo, he resonates with ordinary citizens fed up with crime. He is seen as someone who does something, unlike many career politicians perceived as merely paying lip service. Even opposition figures have publicly thrown their weight behind him, with one EFF MP famously declaring support for Lord Mkhwanazi. He's shown he's willing to stand up to power when he publicly accused the police minister and others of interfering in investigations and being linked to criminal networks, that some of our leaders are doing the things that make the pots to be done with criminals. And then calling that press conference, laying out his evidence and even referencing WhatsApp chats, he also demonstrated an acute and keen understanding of how to seize the media narrative, a powerful political asset that few, like Malema, truly master. There's more. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I'll tell you what, that tweet certainly should get you thinking. What should get you thinking is the 30% tariff, maybe 30 plus 10% tariff. Let's find out more about it from a business unity perspective. We had a chat earlier with Professor Patrick Bond. Do listen to that conversation too. Now with me is the CEO of Business Unity South Africa, and it's Khulekani Mati. I appreciate your time as always on the National Pulse.
Good afternoon, Ashraf, and to the listeners.
Thank you. So around the time we were all having supper last night, we got the news about this 30%, and beyond that, of course, we already know about the 10% that's applicable to all BRICS members, right? What's your reaction? representing business?
So, Ashraf, these tariffs are bad for the economy, bad for the South African economy, but bad for the global economy as a whole, because at a sort of global level, when you impose tariffs such as this, they do have the effect of dampening demand, and dampening demand or softening demand rather, obviously does impact economic growth globally. And so at one level, we are going to see that impact as the global economy. But in South Africa particularly, these tariffs are obviously going to have an impact on jobs.
So give us an example of when you say impact, we need something tangible. Give us examples of how it will impact our country.
So just to give you an example, let's start at a sectoral level and say which sectors are most exposed to the US. Those are sectors such as the auto industry, sectors such as the agricultural industry, and we also know about the minerals, although it's unclear whether the exemption that was announced for some of the critical minerals still applies. We are assuming that those exemptions still do apply. Now, taking these two sectors as examples, clearly, just as an example, we export, something in the order of just under 4% of our total exports, agricultural exports, go to the US, right? It means that this is goods that are produced, that are going to the US. And when you have softer demand as a result of these, it means jobs are going to be affected. Estimates vary in the agricultural sector to something like 35,000 jobs that are dependent or that support the exports to the US. So when you tamper with them at whatever level, you are threatening that order of magnitude in terms of jobs.
Okay, so that's what we have. That's the reality, right?
Yes.
How much of negotiation do we have to change that around? Because Trump made the point, if I could hear correctly, that, we'd sort of welcome in the USA proper, there's some manufacturing by South African companies. He spoke about the great South Africa, strange things, as Trump would say. It sort of left it open to some form of negotiation. So how much negotiation do we have and play, and should we pursue that line?
So, of course, the government handles the trade negotiations. And indeed, I think President Trump did leave a door open. He didn't shut it completely for a possible negotiation that could see these tariffs being either reduced, removed completely. We don't know. But it did leave that door open. So that, I think, is something it's an opportunity that we need to seize. Of course, time is against us because obviously the announcement last night of the 30% tariffs comes into effect in less than a month, so on the 1st of August. So time is of essence, but I would imagine that if there is a concerted effort to really start negotiating, there may well be some sort of stay, by the 1st of August. So we do need to take the opportunity, use the next couple of days to see whether we can start negotiations that lead to those tariffs being changed one way or the other.
Okay, so in a negotiation, you always look at what leverage do we have. So really, what leverage do we as a country have?
Look, it's a point that I think is well understood by people who are doing business with South Africa, that the trade between South Africa and the US generally, but specifically under the AGOA arrangement, does not only benefit South Africa or Africa, it benefits the US too. So I mean, that understanding is appreciated by everybody. And clearly, in the negotiation, it needs to be really canvassed by our negotiators. So that's one part. It's a non-trivial matter. But then there are also, the goods that we supply to the U.S., which are critical to U.S.'s own manufacturing. In other words, if you start to affect the goods that you need for your own production, you're bound to be affected by that decision. So I think carefully working out those points where we, support the U.S.'s own production, own manufacturing is an important one. But, President Trump talked about not only just tariffs, he also talked about non-tariff barriers, which means that we can actually look at and see how can we realistically take to heart what the messages that the U.S. is sending to us, and see where we can respond positively to those. So I think there are options on the table that our government have to exercise in getting a favorable outcome.
Okay, now Michael Jordan, the former CEO of FNB, was a venture capitalist, and I think he's part of Monterey Capital as well. He tweeted earlier on, which is something very interesting. He said, tariffs for South African exports to the USA, 30%, to China, 0%. The world is easternizing fast. That last line, how telling is that in terms of what may happen intentionally or inadvertently by these tariff hikes from the USA?
So what we don't know at the moment is whether what was announced last night is the sum total of the announcement that we are likely to get following what is a fast approaching expiry of the 90-day suspension of the original set of tariffs, right? It is quite likely that tonight, tomorrow night, he could expand that list of tariffs that he's imposing on different countries. We just don't know. Assuming that that Michael is right, and assuming that these are the only countries that are likely to be affected. I think there would be some validity to Michael's tweet, but I gather when you tweet, you're kind of also trying to get a conversation going. It is a lot more nuanced than that, but I think there would be validity to that.
Well, talking about nuances, what position then should your organization, Business Unity South Africa, take? In terms of, it's not always just the president and big businesses. I mean, there has to be some other glue that maybe gets us to think and do things differently. What role can you play?
So at the end of the day, governments negotiate trade arrangements, but it is actually businesses that do the actual trade, right? So we are concerned because we are going to be affected, and because we are going to be affected, we have a stake in this, in making sure that there's a favorable outcome. And so, we have companies, South African companies that are invested in the US, but we also have US companies invested in South Africa. And through these relationships, we need to strengthen those relationships. We need to make sure that through these relationships, we can really demonstrate that having a trade arrangement between our two countries benefits both countries, not just one. And so we are actively engaging with our counterparts to see what role businesses can play, but also making sure that we get the right narrative about what's happening. The same way we did before the White House meeting, for instance.
Now, lastly, when you say you're negotiating with your counterparts, I would think that would be like business lobbies in the USA, right? In the light of so much that's happened regarding USA South Africa in the last few months, and I'm making the point that this tariff is not just applicable to South Africa, as many people are aware of, and maybe some are not. It's many, many countries in the world, right? How do your counterparts, how does the businesses in USA, how do they perceive South Africa?
Well, there are two ways of answering that question, Ashraf. The first one is we have 600 plus U.S. companies that are invested in South Africa. Many have been here for decades. And so they clearly are here because one, there is value, and two, we are an investment destination that is valuable to them. And you know, we also have South African companies that are invested on the other side. And through these companies, by the way, these are multinational companies, they must be sending messages to their headquarters that this is an important market for us as a US-based company.
Let's leave it at that. Appreciate your insights as always, Kolekane Mate, the CEO of Business Unity South Africa. It's all about Trump. It's all about the tariffs. Well, I'll tell you what, it's also all about the police, and we'll talk to them, about them rather, after this.
The Twiga Stars want to impress the Tanzanians with maximum points, while Banyana Banyana won nothing but a win as a reminder that they are the continental champions. This is the Group C clash of the Total Energies Women's Africa Cup of Nations Morocco 2024. Catch the glittering clash between Tanzania and South Africa on Friday 11 July at 8:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus, SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and S3. Also available on SABC radio stations at 9 p.m. Where Africa competes, South Africa connects. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
You are listening to SAFM Radio this Mandela Month.
It is in your hands now.
X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
In fact, I'll pick up a quick tweet from another tweeter and a text message from Imzi in the Eastern Cape saying, "Good evening, Ashraf. I'm an active ANC member in the Eastern Cape. General Mkhonazi, long before his recent press conference, has occupied a special place in many people's hearts across political affiliations. He seems to be the only senior official who knows how we feel on our country's streets. He feels the urgency of it all. Others seem muted. Others seem to massage criminals. Him, definitely not. Also, I like the refreshing discussions opened by the Minister of Correctional Services." Okay, that's from MZ. It's a nice lead-in to my conversation now, but because of that same person and what he said and the claims he's made, let's then bring in. So, you know, there's not a day in the last few days that we've got one story of another about the impact that it's having on the country. But now there's an interesting thought here, and I want to bring in Jeff Wicks, who's a News 24 investigative journalist. Jeff, good to connect with you on the National Pulse.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So, you know, amongst the many things that that was said by General Mkhonazi over the weekend on Sunday, right? He then picked out a name with someone called Cat. And you, I'm talking about Vusimuzi Cat Mhlala, and you have done further investigations around that and found some, well, rather disturbing connections. So tell me about that.
Yeah, so Ashraf, just to sort of set it out chronologically, Cat has been on our radar since midway through 2022. And he's an enigmatic fellow. He's a businessman. He's got a vast range of interests, from occupational health to security. And he had 3 shell companies which were flagged by Babita Deokaran, the Gauteng Health Department whistleblower who was slain in August of 2021. And when we investigated the files that had been kept on her laptop and on her cell phone, it was 60,000 emails, we established that she tried to report fraudulent spending, or what she believed at the time to be fraudulent spending at Tembisa Hospital. And she annexed a list of 217 companies. On that list were 3 companies which were directed by Vusimuzi Cat Mhlala. And we honed in on him then, and we had him placed as part of a larger syndicate of extraction. And the SIU has now pegged the total figure pulled from that hospital in just 2 years at 2.3 billion rand. So the scale of the extraction was massive. And then we kept our eye on Mr. Mhlala because he was an interesting person to us. And midway through last year, a small company that he registered, he was the sole director of it. It was domiciled in a Boksburg strip mall, amazingly won this 360 million rand health services tender from the police.
Wow.
And he won that tender in spite of being under an active investigation by the SIU and the Hawks. So he essentially won a contract from the same organization investigating him for procurement fraud. So we've done a fair bit of reporting on that, and that contract was eventually cancelled. But now issues around that tender and other crimes that he's accused of have become central in what appears to us to be an unprecedented moment, because what we saw on Sunday was a career policeman, someone who's extremely popular and has enamored himself to the South African public, coming out, breaking rank, and openly defying his political principle. So it is dramatic and seismic. Not only does he do that, but he accuses the police minister of criminality or being steered by underworld forces, specifically Matlala. So our investigation, which has run over the past 7 months, has only now been really thrust to the fore because this contract is so central in what has truly roiled the South African police service.
And interesting enough, I mean, when we talk about Matlala or the cat, the name Bheki Cele also comes into play.
Absolutely. I mean, part of our investigation has been trying to map his political links. We know he's a man with extreme sway within the South African police service. That's common cause at this point. But we wanted to understand if he had political ties. Obviously, Mkhwanazi has linked him to current police minister Senzo Mchunu. Someone who was on our radar was his predecessor, Bheki Cele. And because when you think about it, this massive health services tender, which was plagued by irregularity and saw 50 million rands worth of taxpayers' money pulled out of SAP's coffers, and it's now irregular. And the police are now without a health services provider because they've cancelled a contract. That entire award and adjudication process happened while Bheki Cele was the police minister, and the tender was awarded a week after he stepped down. So these are skeletons from his closet and not really Senzo Mchunu's. And today we revealed that he, since he stepped down as police minister, has twice stayed in a luxury hotel penthouse which was leased by CAT. So that is what we would normally call a gratification.
Okay, and that, yeah, I can just imagine people listening is like, oh my goodness, what's going to happen next, isn't it? Before we get to what happens next, that tender that was then cancelled, the health tender, why was it cancelled? I mean, what sparked it off for it to be cancelled?
So we started writing about it in December of last year. And initially when we put questions to the SAPs, they said everything was fine, all processes were followed, it was all above board. And, it was strange to us that such a small company was able to win this tender off a JSE-listed firm like Metropolitan. There was a bit of a glaring mismatch. And we probed further, and we then found out that, this tender and its award had been audited, and the red flags were leaping off the page. Allegations of fronting, fraud, bid rigging, and collusion. The entire process was a mess. Not only that, Mr. Matlala was struggling to actually service the tender. He was way behind in many work streams. So the contract itself was already falling apart. And then we revealed that a high-ranking police officer who had been a key figure in the award of the tender on the bid adjudication and bid award committees had resigned from the SAPs in the same month the tender was awarded, and 6 months later was working for Matlala. That's javelin throwing, a material breach of the terms and conditions of the contract, and the SAPs were able to use it to immediately cancel that contract.
Okay.
But not before Matlala was paid 50 million rand.
Noted. Right. What happens next?
Then we cover this matter quite extensively, and then Mkhwanazi drops a nuclear warhead on the Justice and Security Cluster, because he then links Senzo Mchunu to Matlala via a proxy named Brown Makhotsi, seemingly drawn from text messages on Matlala's phone, which was seized and processed after his arrest on a separate matter of attempted murder for the attempted assassination of his ex-girlfriend. It's a lot to follow. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it is a lot to follow. Okay, well, let's leave it at that, unless there's more you want to add before we get to the news.
No, please go to the news, and thank you for having me.
Thank you. I'll tell you what, Jeff, feel free to tweet out the links to your piece once again. I'll gladly share that. Just tag SFM Radio and myself, Ashraf Garda. I think the audience needs to know more, and who knows what does happen next is another story completely. Thank you for your time, as always, Jeff Wicks from News 24, the investigative journalist there. Well, I'll tell you what, that story, I mean, as per the allegations, they all have to be proven, I understand that, but if it all comes to the fore and people actually get nailed, I'll repeat what I've been saying all week. We've heard of state capture. What about police capture and the implications thereof? Here's Greg Gross.
Quick look at the headlines. Former JMPD police chief and current advisor to the MMC for Public Safety in the city of Johannesburg, David Tembe, says the department will look into allegations that a drug syndicate operating in Gauteng has infiltrated the judiciary, the police service and the Metro Police. Police have arrested a 22-year-old suspect in connection with 3 murders in the Eastern Cape, and US President Donald Trump says the US will now send more weapons to Ukraine after a pause in the delivery of some supplies. A full update at 6 o'clock.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N1 northbound in Midrand, slow moving towards Samrand Road. The N1 southbound is queuing towards the N17 Soweto exit, and the N14 westbound in Muldersdrift has a crash reported just before the R114 Drift Boulevard exit. In KZN, Umgeni Road westbound slow moving through Springfield Park, and the R102 southbound queuing towards the M25 Commercial Highway. In Cape Town, the M5 northbound queuing towards the N1 Koeberg interchange, Bosmansdam Road eastbound in Summer Greens slow moving towards the N7 highway, and Main Road northbound has heavy traffic reported entering the central Muizenberg area. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tumi Nkapele.
Okay, Tumi's got an eye on sports. Tumi.
In sports this hour, South Africa beat Zimbabwe by an innings and 236 runs in the second test to complete a 2-0 series win. At the start of play, Zimbabwe were 51 for 1 in the second innings, trailing by 405. Now, they lost their last 6 wickets for just 67 runs and were ultimately bundled out for 220 as they fell well short of their target. Seema Coburn-Bosch led the Proteas bowling attack, taking 4 for 38, while spinner Suniran Motusami grabbed 3 for 77. This was the Proteas' biggest margin of victory in a test match and their most convincing win against Zimbabwe. Meanwhile, Cricket South Africa has named a fresh-faced SA Under-19 men's squad. This is for the upcoming Youth ODI series against Bangladesh, and that will be followed by a tri-series in Zimbabwe. KZN Inland's Mohamed Balbalia and Lions all-rounder Jason Rouse, they'll continue to share captaincy duties, while 3 new talents, Corne Buerta, Aman Manak and Vian Pretorius, they have earned their first national call-ups. The squad blends continuity with fresh energy following a strong showing against Namibia last month. In rugby, Willie Leroux will earn his 100th test cap when the Proteas take on Italy in Gqeberha this Saturday. This is in the second match of the Castle Lager incoming series. The Boks have made several changes to the team, with Salman Murat set to captain the side in Siya Kolisi's absence. Then 3 uncapped players in Asenati Ntlabakanye, Kobus Visser and Ethan Hooker. They've been named on the bench and could make their test debuts. Murat is one of the 7 players retained from the team that beat Italy 42-24 in Pretoria last week. Then in football, Banyana coach Desiree Ellis says that now there's less pressure going into the upcoming matches. This is after the win in the first game in the Women's Africa Cup of Nations. Banyana collected 3 points to lead Group C after their hard-fought 2-0 win over Ghana last night. And next up for South Africa, they face Tanzania. Meanwhile, SABC Sport has learned that Orlando Pirates are in advanced talks to loan out winger Monapule Saleng to newly promoted Betway Premiership side Albert College. Saleng struggled for game time last season, making just 5 appearances with his last outing in December against Al Ahly. While there were rumors linking him to a move to the Egyptian Giants, nothing was confirmed, and Pirates have also also not explained why Seleng was sidelined. Elsewhere, it's down to the final four in the FIFA Club World Cup, and the semi-finals start with Chelsea taking on Fluminense today. The Blues have one loss in the group stages so far to Flamengo, while the Brazilian side are yet to lose so far, winning 3 matches and 2 draws in 5 total contests between the group stages and round of 16. And kickoff is at 9 p.m. With that said, it is a wrap from my side.
Thanks for that, Tumi. I can tell you now, just by the way, without even giving names, I have so enjoyed Wimbledon this year. I really have. And to think, it comes with the big numbers, and before you know it, it's the weekend, and you get quarters and semi-finals and then the final. But I think if you ask me what am I planning to do Saturday afternoon and Sunday, well, there's your answer. No strawberries, no cream, but I'll be watching Wimbledon.
30 years ago, a moment united a nation. From Ellis Park to every township and village, we stood together. One people, one dream, one victory. Now, the vibration rises again. From the heart of Mzansi to every corner of the country. The 4-time world champions, the mighty Springboks, take on the Azuri in a clash where history meets destiny. This is more than a match. It's a country moment, only on SABC. Celebrate the 30th anniversary of our 1995 Rugby World Cup victory. Watch South Africa versus Italy, Saturday 12 July at 4 p.m. Live on SABC2 and streaming on SABC+. Also available on SABC radio stations at 5 p.m. Download the SABC Plus app now. Switch, stream, no subscription. SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Looking ahead, the SAFM market update 6 to 7 to set the scene. We have Jimmy Moyaha. Jimmy, your top story I see is an interesting link between, the Competition Commission and Vodacom. Tell me about that.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Good afternoon to the listeners. Yes, we have been keeping a close eye on that conversation. Of course, the last we heard was that that deal was not approved. It had been blocked. We had gotten to the extent of the minister getting involved around the competition laws and asking why it had been blocked and asking the Competition Tribunal to review that. We had spoken to various analysts around that particular deal and whether or not it would be good for the market. It seems as though all of the noise that's been made around this deal from the various stakeholders has actually resulted in the Competition Commission reviewing and revising their ruling on the particular matter and adding conditions to see the deal go ahead. So we're going to look at that. We're going to look at what these changes look like and what it means for that deal going forward. Then we've also got a conversation around the tariff saga. Obviously, that is going to continue to keep us busy for as long as the United States continues to announce these tariffs. We know that as it stands at the moment, the 30% tariff on South Africa is set to take place on the 1st of August. We're going to start taking a look at that from various perspectives. I'm going to start with the perspective of the agricultural space today. Obviously, there's other perspectives around the automotive sector, around the precious metals and a mining sector and all of that. And I want to kind of give each sector within our economy enough time to see what the implications are and how we move forward. Obviously, the situation is also still quite fluid. We know that we are still in negotiations to perhaps have this suspended and perhaps negotiate a better outcome with the United States, although that seems more and more unlikely as we progress. But we'll see what that means and we'll see the implications that'll have for South Africa as an economy. And then we've got a conversation with the team at 91 around the US dollar. They penned quite an interesting piece around whether or not we are potentially reaching the end of dollar dominance as the dollar is now being negatively impacted by its own president, not so much by global factors. I thought it would be interesting to look at that and see what it is that they're seeing from that perspective. And then we've got a conversation with the team at Eduvos around learner-centric education. They've got an interesting way of approaching higher education. We're going to speak to them around that and try and get get a sense of why this model is something they believe so strongly in. And then because it's Tuesday, we're going to take a look at a property conversation. We're going to be looking at renovations, which renovations add value to your property, how you need to navigate the renovation space when dealing with your properties, and how to make the most of your renovations so that they add to your property value and you're not spending too much. But before we get to all those conversations, the Rand has somewhat attempted a recovery against the US dollar. Not much considering where we were last month. We're at 17 Rand 82 at the moment, about 0.25% stronger against the US dollar. We're at 24 Rand 18 against the British pound, 20 Rand 86 against the euro, and 11 Rand 62 against the Australian dollar. One Bitcoin is still at around $108,000 a coin, or around 1.93 million Rand. If we look at commodity pricing, the gold price is a little weak at the moment, around $3,295 a fine ounce. We were above 3,330 odd at some point today as well, so quite a bit of a sell-off on the gold price at the moment. Brent crude $69.84 a barrel, and platinum around $1,368 a fine ounce. Equity markets are in the red on the local front. Equity markets internationally were all in the green. Every single international indice in the green, including US markets at the moment, even though ever so slightly. Biggest gainer in Asian markets was the Hang Seng, up about 1%. Biggest gainer in European markets, probably the Germany DAX, around 0.5% or 0.54% in the green. Our own local markets not having such a great day. That sell-off on the gold front and the slightly weaker commodity pricing on the platinum side of it means that resources were down 1.9%. Financials were up 0.5% and industrials were up 0.4%. That didn't stop the all share from closing out 0.1% in the red, with the top 40 in similar space. So we're going to take a look at these market movements a little later on. I've got Neelis Brink of PSG Wealth joining me to take a look at that and try and make sense of some of these market movements. But of course, as usual, that's a conversation that takes place just after the 6 p.m. news. For now, Ashraf, back to you.
Right, perfect. Thanks for that. I was going to say Tumi. No, not Tumi. Jimmy Tumi. Does sort of have a similar ring to it. Appreciate it. And you enjoy your show from 6 to 7. Lots to consider. Tariffs again, the number one factor on the agenda. What else is on the agenda is yourself. I clearly want to know what you have to say. And let me just tell you up front, if you're a first-time caller, I need to know that so I can welcome you to the show. But if you're a regular, well, I know that anyway, right? So calls, WhatsApp, text messages, voice notes, tweets, they're all welcome here on the National Pulse.
X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
Let's pick out a series of voice notes. In fact, there's one on. Yeah, let me do this one first.
Hi, Ashraf. Just want to say well done to Tumi. Remember yesterday, she took the prediction that South Africa will win against Ghana 2-0. I'm not sure if she bragged about it. If she did, okay, that's well good. But if she did not, she mustn't forget to brag even tomorrow. Thank you. Bye.
Well, I'll tell you what, she didn't brag about it on air, but I can tell you now, she bragged via Twitter last night. She said, this is her tweet, and you must follow her, Tumi Nkapele. As predicted, South Africa beat Ghana 2-0. Ashraf Garda, I'm starting to believe in my prediction skills. Okay, there we are. So she's done it. Nice one indeed. And she's certainly getting it right. Absolutely. What about the prediction skills of Mkhwanazi?
Hi, I'm Joe from Durban. On General Mkhwanazi forming a political idea. Bad idea, he'll lose his effectiveness. It's even more important that he stays within the SAPS. Finds other clean, dedicated policemen to work with. And works from within to undo the mess that is in the SAPS. Once he becomes a politician, effectively all of his effectiveness will be lost, and he'll just become one of far too many politicians already. And we'll leave that to Floyd for now.
I must concur with you. Here's another.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Listening to you reading this piece about somebody saying Mkhwanazi being a successful politician, South Africans continue sometimes to disappoint me. You know, just because you are good at something doesn't mean you should join politics. Politics is very, very, very different from operations. Being a police minister is not like being a commissioner. It's Come on. He won't make it. He's good where he is, and he's doing what he's doing because he's operational. Right? Not all good teachers who teach in medical school will make good doctors. No, man. Hey, he must never try and join these political things. Thank you.
Well, I mean, let's get it clear. Nobody said he must. I think the tweet that I read out is certainly a suggestion. And it's like, I'm not saying he must, but if he did, this is what's likely to happen. So it's that type of, tongue-in-cheek comment. But the reality is what was backed up on that was just his body of support now that he has in terms of how people see him and the role that he plays in South Africa. Right, Magdalene in Bloemfontein, you have a view too. Hello.
Afternoon, Ashraf.
Afternoon.
And the listeners.
Thank you.
Ashraf, we've been calling and we've been crying, we've been talking. I always say talk is cheap, but action is expensive. The commissioner deserves a big applaud from us, and he deserves a support from us. It is high time that we South Africans stand up to say we are going to support those who fight against corruption and crime and criminal activities, those who are selfless for their own lives for the sake of the South Africans, those who want to bring back better South Africa for all, not everybody who is in South Africa, but for the South Africans preferably so. I am tired of calling on SAFM, but nothing of action is coming because the man maybe he tried to alert the president about everything. But for the fact that he was not listened to or given an ear or given a chance to can present himself there at the parliament so that the action can be taken, then he managed to come up with one thing. Yeah. He managed to say enough is enough. I'm going on media on Sunday. I'm not sure. It was beautiful. This is a beautiful move. This is a beautiful action. I applaud him. And I need us South Africans to change our votes because as long as ANC is in power, this man his life is in danger.
Okay.
It's not. Right. It's not only Ibrahim. It's not only Ibrahim. We've got the other Ibrahim in South Africa.
You're talking about the leader of. You're talking about Traore.
We need to support him.
Okay, Magdalene got that. I can tell you now. You see, in many ways, Magdalene's views, I do say, you're on the pulse. You also reflect the pulse of a nation, and I have a sense that Magdalene's views reflect just that for many people, isn't it? People are hurtful. That's the reality. That how often can we talk about mass corruption of our country, which has completely broken the edifice of South Africa? Lucas in Pretoria, hello.
Hi, Ashraf and the listeners. Just not to waste your time, I'm just going to share two things only.
Okay.
It's a norm around Spruit, Vosloo, and Thokoza for the metro to collect 20 rands from the taxi drivers. Everybody knows that. They do it in the morning, they do it in the afternoon. That's corruption that is visible to us. Now, the last one I want to share with you guys, it's a very sad one. There is a young girl, if you can take me offline, I can share all the details.
Okay.
Again, she was taken in Pretoria, turned to be a prostitute to sell the drugs, and every time she's starting to refuse, the person who used to beat her up, it's someone in the very high hierarchy of the legal system, and she couldn't do anything until late last year. She ran away. So I'm just sharing that because she had nowhere to go, but fortunately I'm one of those people that she was able to share the story with.
Okay.
So when Mr. Mkhanazi is talking about the corrupt legal system, these guys are corrupt to the core and they get away with it. And they think no one's going to do anything about it. So it's high time South Africa rise. Let's do what we are supposed to do. And hopefully Mr. President will do the right thing.
All right, Lucas,
you.
And you didn't waste our time, not at all. I'm going to put you back on to Keys. Just have a chat with him, all right, in terms of what you said you want to maybe share off air. Much appreciated, Lucas, in Pretoria. Right, we go to the Prince now in Sandton. Hello, Prince.
Good evening, Ashraf. How are you?
Yeah, good indeed. Right, what's your point?
Yes, man. I just want to engage on the issue of of Mkhwanazi. Ashraf, according to me, how I see things now, I think it's high time that South Africans wake up now. You know what? It look like we are bewitched,
Yeah.
But we are not doing that, Ashraf.
Okay,
Right.
yeah. Prince, oh, your line's just gone worse. I'm so struggling to hear you. Yeah. No, I'm going to have to let that go. Really, it's a pity. I'd like to have heard what you had to say, Prince, in Zanin. Right, I tell you what, let's get to some of your WhatsApp comments. There are many. We'll do it after this.
The Copper Queens are not willing to settle for anything less than a win. But the Teranga Lionesses believe they have everything under control to roar with victory to the referee's final whistle. This is the Total Energies Women's Africa Cup of Nations Morocco 2024. Catch the thrilling action between the West and the South. Zambia versus Senegal this Wednesday, 9 July at 5:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Where Africa competes, South Africa connects. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
This Mandela Month, SAFM celebrates the spirit of Ubuntu, calling on all South Africans to engage, uplift, and do good for one another. Let's share what we have, lend a helping hand, and honor Madiba's legacy through kindness and action. Join SAFM as we bring you powerful conversations, inspiring stories, and voices that drive change all month long. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Right, here's a text from an anonymous listener. Well done, SAFM, to give the opportunity. Open heart, true conversation. Thank you. Got that. Much appreciated. Open heart conversations on Mkhwanazi and the state of South Africa continues.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. I've put this on all my social platforms that Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi have paved the way to a national dialogue. That's where we must start now. We're not going to look there and there and there, found wanting. Here's the way for a national dialogue. The man, God has sent a brave man to come and save us. Thank you very much. Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi, hala. Thank you.
Well, there you are. We are having the national dialogue on the national dialogue. And you're right about this. This one has set the agenda for the national dialogue. Here's another on Trump.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. It's Edward. Ashraf, we are told that the engagement which was done between President Ramaphosa and the USA president together with those golfers, it was a successful, according to Minister Pakstow. He said that was a very successful engagement. As well as the trip by the FF Plus leader, he said he had a successful engagement with the White House representative. Does this mean that it was supposed to be more than the 30% tariff which you are getting now? If those two engagements were successful, then what did they achieve?
Okay, I think you ask an interesting question. Sometimes actually that meeting of success was very low on detail. So I mean, what were the details thereafter? We don't really know. Although to be fair, the 30% is not just South Africa. It's not like we're being punished. There's a whole range of countries, some even more, that have been applied to this tariff as Donald Trump wants to turn things around in his country and to, quote him, to make America, great again.
Hey, Ashraf and all SAFM listeners, good afternoon. How to repair public confidence and country's reputation as a result of the allegations made by Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi cannot be restored just like that, Ashraf, by President Ramaphosa. He himself has lost credibility for having not taken any action against ministers implicated in the Zondo Commission. Pala, saga also suggests that may have been defended by these implicated ministers. He doesn't want to fire, and therefore cannot be seen as a just in just anything as a president. This is Andy Le from Stakespruit in the Eastern Cape, nearest to borders.
Okay, see, there you are. That's another point about discussion in terms of what sparks off the national pulse in this case here. So your points, I think many would be listening and saying, you know what, Andile is right.
Hi, how are you, Ashraf? It's Bonga from Soweto. So when it comes to tariff, you know, it's trade issues. So they just have to Department of Trade fix the trade and try to equate the equation. That's all. It's a simple problem. It's not complicated. Just fix the trades. Sacrifice something and then gain something. That's all that they're asking for.
Well, they want some form of balance of payment, but if that's simple, then it will be done every single day. It's clearly not that simple, is it?
Ashraf, I suspect the General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi must have tried to deal with matter internally. But now, maybe something is not being done. Those that are responsible. And my suspicion is that he has communicated some of these things with the president. Now he's trying to expose everybody, including the president himself, because what has been said now forces the hand of the president to do something about the situation. Thank you very much.
Okay, I just wonder. I think, you know, every household, and again, it's supper time again just now, they'll be talking about solutions for our country, and I just wonder what you think. So, you know, one thing is just letting off steam because you're so upset and disappointed. And in my conversation with Jeff Wicks, and please listen to that as a podcast as well, there's a chance that, something even more may emerge in the days ahead, isn't it? What are the implications for the entire structure of South Africa's security, but then key members of South African leadership?
Good evening, sir, and your listeners. Stay 5 here at KZN. I would like to mention in the case of Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi, even if he is proven wrong, even if the evidence that he has is not sufficient, but as a South Africans, from what we know, from what we have been seeing, we are behind him and we are fighting this fraud and corruption to the core, even if he is proven wrong on this instant.
Even if he's proven wrong in this instant. Interesting indeed. You see, here's another comment about clean leaders.
Hi, Ashraf. No, in South Africa, we honestly need a different way of choosing our leaders. This thing of political parties is not working. Because now, why are we always subjected to presidents with blemishes? If it wasn't the arms deal with Thabo Mbeki, it's Phala with Ramaphosa and state capture with Zuma. Like, when are we going to have squeaky clean leaders? Like, a president must be squeaky clean, like no blemish.
Well, I mean, yeah. When are we going to get it? I think, yeah. That's the wish list for all of us, isn't it? It hasn't quite happened for a long, long time, and we're paying the price for that as a country.
Good evening, Ashraf. This is Nati from Cape Town. Ashraf, we don't expect President to act with enormous, because even himself is still facing those allegations of the mattress money. So he's not going to act, you'll see. Cheers.
He's not going to act. And here's another one. Ashraf, the president must act decisively against the criminals who are destroying the country and its future. And General Mkhwanazi mentioned that our kids are fed drugs by the underworld that the corrupt police are working with, and we are behind General Mkhwanazi, and any decision to suspend him will be rejected by all of us from TG. Maybe, just maybe, TG's comments is a reflection of all that we think about, isn't it? Here's maybe just one last comment I can play.
Can we please talk about SARS, and can you get an explanation on why basic salaried employees were not able to submit their returns yesterday, but were told to come back in 2 weeks' time? This has never happened in my history of submitting and getting my refund from SARS. Why is it happening now? And I think this is another sign of how Cyril Ramaphosa's administration is squandering our taxes. We're servicing 2 billion in loans per day, but every damn week they are taking more loans from this, loans from that. It's a Ponzi scheme. Our country is being run like a Ponzi scheme. I bet you he's in Brazil now to get money so that our refunds can be paid to us. So let's have the SARS commissioner explain himself, please.
Okay, you can debate that point. I played it earlier, but I wanted to end up with it. Does that, some of the comments we've had in the last half an hour, they reflect the sense of desperation of the people of our country. They really, really do. So what is the national pulse? A sense of desperation. We are truly looking for leaders who can hold on to the ball and get to the try line, if you get my point. Thanks for listening. We'll do it again tomorrow. This is the National Pulse. Here's Greg House.
Thank you again, Ashraf. Probe into Gauteng drug syndicate and arrests over Eastern Cape murders. Good evening. Former JMPD police chief and current advisor to the MMC for Public Safety in the city of Johannesburg, David Tembe, says the department will look into allegations that a drug syndicate operating in Gauteng has infiltrated the judiciary, the police service and the Metro Police. The claims were made by the KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner, Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi. Tembe says the investigation will also look into the